quarter.
Yeah, no. I think now that I heard Don. Octavian, can you say something once more? You're also pretty loud. I think you guys are all pretty good. Professional podcast panelist. What's that? Okay, great.
We had a comment from chat saying streamers might want to be in the chat room so viewers can at them.
Well, I'm already in the chat, so.
Okay. Seems good and feels amazing, man. So I think we'll just start right away, right? Otherwise, we'll waste precious time and most importantly, precious energy that we have and excitement to talk about these topics that we prepared.
I prepared nothing.
Preparation? That was part of the deal?
No. I think we're all, like I said, I think we're all well prepared in terms of what we know about Delve. I think we all can more or less recap on what we did in the incursion flashback, and I think that should be sufficiently prepared. So,
Sure.
Sounds
Go
good.
ahead, Ecktor. What have you been up to?
I mean,
no.
I streamed Path of Exile today, and then I streamed Hearthstone.
Wait, what? You streamed Hearthstone?
Yeah, the other day.
Oh, okay. I thought today. That would have been
No, today I was streaming PoE.
To get the PoE crowd coming for the podcast.
Yep.
Well, I think I'll do a short introduction. I'll say hi to you each, and then we'll see where it goes. So, welcome everyone to the Faded Connections podcast, episode 8. Faded Connections, a Path of Exile community podcast that I started up with WaifuGate. Big shout out here to WaifuGate, who recently decided that he's not playing PoE for the time being. It's unclear whether WaifuGate will return, but still big ups for setting this up with me. And I want to welcome a small crowd of fellow broadcasters to today's show so that we have, a couple of new faces that we can talk to. New and old faces. I mean, probably you know these people better than you know me. So I want to welcome Ecktor, who is mostly a hardcore player who is very known for...
Quote, hardcore.
Well, Hardcore League, I mean. Mostly known, as far as I know, for pushing early masters and reliably farming lab enchants.
Hello, guys. Yeah, I'm mostly just master farm in hardcore leagues. I decided to switch to a softcore league this league, but I'm going back to hardcore for Delve.
Oh, really?
Seems like an interesting league to do it.
I know.
I was thinking the same.
Learn the limits. There's going to be a lot of fun rip clips of people going I could go to level 75 Delve. It's fine.
Yeah,
Easy.
That's the fun part, actually. That's why I want to do it.
So yeah,
I want to die.
Okay, that stream took a harsh turn already.
Even though I don't think people need a further introduction, I still want to quickly finish the introduction by telling you that good-looking young gentleman right next to Ecktor is Octavian, who is, I think, if I remember correctly, a mostly softcore player, but went with the solo self-found hardcore version of the race to great success, as far as I've seen. And we welcome DonTheCrown, who's been also on the last episode when WaifuGate was still doing this with me. And Don has been pushing it really hard in the solo self-found version of the softcore. In the softcore version of the solo self-found race. Solo self-found softcore version of the race? Something like that.
Yeah, I think in the last week or so I've done 90 plus hours of streaming.
Wow.
And as of right now I'm class rank 3 on champions, total rank 43. 96 hours in the last week, so yeah. It's a lot.
Just 4 more done. You get that even 100.
Except for I think I'm losing hours right now as it's rolling over.
I mean, it's an hour. not gonna kill you. Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, the other people also have to socialize or do things. I don't know how the competition is in softcore races. I've always been scared away from it because when I think about how people could just, not sleep for 40 hours and I guess I always want to say it doesn't matter if you die, but I've seen you die the other day and you lost like 5 hours of progress. So I don't want to say it doesn't matter because it's quite painful.
I think
But it's
it matters at high end. Early on, it doesn't, but once you get to like 98, 97, around that level, I think it matters a lot.
And
Even
even more
like
so,
94, you like die and you lose a whole like hour, sometimes 2. And so that's like kind of 2 hours lost there in a lot of ways. So like I've watched like the XP graph you can like actually watch on Poe Racing. I've pinned all the top 4 guys, and I've like watched some of my competitors lose 6 hours in like a single hour. Like I sent a message, what happened at 8 p.m.? Like, oh my gosh, I died 3 times in the map. And I died 4 times in a map, and it was really terrible. I lost like 5 hours worth of work.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
especially because you're not doing the stupid high density crazy stuff that you might be able to do in Trade League. You can't keep up sextants fully all the time and chisels fully all the time and that sort of crap. And solo
And
assault.
you probably can reliably survive like double beyond and stuff like that.
Yeah,
as
I'm
well,
not running
since-
double beyond right now, but I'm definitely doing a lot of chisels and a lot of sextants.
Yeah,
just
I mean, you
find a
use them whenever you
Biscos.
can.
I
Maybe
just find a
you got
Biscos,
better
though.
luck. True.
Oh yeah.
I have first-hand experience with that. I've been 96 for like 2 weeks, 4 weeks on my LE hit character that I was playing in Incursion because I just kept dying every once in a while. So like all the progress I had just vanishes.
Oh yeah, man. Today when I hit 97, that was the highest that any character I've ever had ever in Path of Exile history, and felt so good because I was like,
Congrats, dude.
I was totally wiped out, and I was just running tier 10s as fast as possible. And I looked down, and I was like, wait, where's my XP? I leveled up. I leveled up. Thank God.
That sounds amazing.
I think my highest character is 98. I just never pushed for the 100.
Yeah, it's hard. I have a lot of respect for anybody who's ever hit 100. I know
gotta
one
back
of my
in that.
mods, Katzen, has hit it like 6 times or something now, so it's
I
crazy.
feel like I could do it. I just get bored.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
It's
I
fun
got
in
it
a
once
race
back in
environment,
Harbinger.
but-
Define fun.
I think it's fun in a
Um,
race environment, but outside of racing, it's not fun.
It's because it always boils down to there being like one, really regardless of what the best way is, there's like one best way to push XP in the end game, maybe 2. Like back when I pushed for 100, it was in Harbinger and it was beachheads.
Oh yeah,
so-
everybody just spammed beachheads. I remember that.
and oh my god, I got so incredibly tired of beachheads. I don't know.
I mean, I did
it's-
beachheads back in the day, and it was a lot of fun because I had a headhunter. You just
Yeah,
like,
no, it was
none of
fun
you
the,
guys
like
attack.
first 50, 60 times.
It's like Poor Joy's chain. It's like it's fun for like the first 50 to 100, and then it just gets tedious.
Yeah.
I guess it's just the nature of the matter.
I don't know. For me, it was just funny because it was I was doing Dark Pack self cast. So like, if you got the right combination of buffs, your HP would go from 100% to 0, just from you casting way too fast.
Oh, with a headhunter, you mean?
Oh yeah, with a headhunter, you get like over 1 million DPS, and all of a sudden your health just disappears as you're not hitting anything, and it's like, oh god, I'm at 1 HP right now. I should probably stop casting.
Well,
I can just imagine like your hand tied to your mouse by like duct tape, and like something's forcing you to click. I can't stop.
I can't.
but yeah. So now that we're already talking about your race progress a bit, Don, what you're playing champion, right?
Yeah, I'm playing champion again.
And what was your initial plan going into the race? Like you were planning to go for a demi, obviously. Otherwise, you wouldn't be pushing it that hard. Or is that something you decided along the way? Or?
I 100% went in wanting a demi. I mean, my character's name is Don the Demi. I've never won a demigods before, oddly enough. And I felt like kind of a little bit of a scrub when I was doing all the pro racing. I'm like, I am literally the only guy here that doesn't have a demigods of any way, shape, or form. So,
Yeah,
kind of
even
fits
that scrubby Catmaster has a demi.
Yeah, exactly. No, like in the pro races, like a bunch of those guys have like, oh, I've got like 40 demigods, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like Rise QT has a bajillion demigods. And so I was like, you know what? I've never actually pushed for it or tried for it too hard. This is the time. I've really been loving Champion. I played Champion like Blade Flurry Reeve 2 leagues in a row and got like 4 million DPS last league, 7 million DPS this league. Might try to do it again and delve even tankier. But I was also doing it as like a magic finder with Wind Ripper, kind of a budget Wind Ripper build, if that exists. I was like, let's try Wander. And so I talked to a couple of people, like Freak kind of gave me a lot of insight in like what he had done in the hardcore solo self-found league. And so it was basically just working my way towards Piscators and got very lucky with an Ancient Orb, got Piscators and just kind of got rolling with the build. And it's been going pretty smooth so far, except I can't get a 6 link. It's the only thing I'm like really missing.
Sorry about that. I don't know the yawn. I apologize.
Yeah, first time podcast. It's all good.
First time podcast. I need to like mute my mic when I'm gonna yawn or something.
Well, Piscators, eh? Because I was thinking, I actually got a Piscators off of Kadiro, and now that I died yesterday on my Ascendant, I decided, well, you kind of have to do elemental hit because I have one combat focus already, and maybe I get the other one that I need, and I think it's already good without one, but having one that already kind of pigeonholes me into that. And I was thinking, is it better to go Chinsol or is it better to go Piscators? And I was too lazy to do the Path of Building because it's 2 different builds. It's not just switching the bow for the wand, but it's like you build it differently. So I was really still haven't decided what I think is better.
Well, I think Chinsol's is more for single target, whereas Quill Rain's more clearing maps.
Oh no, Piscators versus
Yeah, I just mean like in terms like
in terms of both,
just Chinsol. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like that's not the comparison that would be drawn if you were going for a mapping build specifically.
Oh, that's what you'd say. Cases. You wouldn't use a Chinsol for mapping.
You could if it's like the only option available. That's a 6 link. I would do it, but Quill Rain is your mapping one, and then you would switch to Chinsol for bossing.
Because I looked up some builds, but I'll see what is probably the best option.
So Octavian, what have you been doing in the flashback race? No,
yeah, actually, I'm wondering as well.
I've been repeatedly climbing the hardcore solo self-found Guardian ladder. I was doing pretty well a few days back, got up to level 93 or 4. I don't recall, I'd have to go look, and ended up trying to get Naziri's Promise. I was playing Blade Vortex, and I did not keep adequate track of where the mirror clone was. And when dodging away from a flame blast, I dodged through the mirror clone and one-shot myself.
Seen that
I re-leveled. Rough rip, I saw that.
Yeah. I re-leveled, though, and I'm back up to level 92 again, and I'm back into the top 10. So getting a demi should still be very doable. It's just I was on track to be able to get an alt art, and I would really like to be able to get back to that, and that's going to take a lot of grinding, but I'm going to see if I can do it.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone can do it, you can do it, man.
All right, so I guess the elephant in the room.
You're the elephant in the room.
One day of flashback, hardcore SSF. After the day, I'm like, killed myself, and then I just stopped playing.
Did you at least hit 35?
I got to maps.
Okay.
Well, yeah, probably then.
I mean, so last time, like last flashback, I literally hit 36, opened my box, got my, I think, Innocence Wings, and I was like, I'm satisfied. I'm done.
Yeah, that kind of happened to me. I don't know. The first day was great. Like pushing to maps was great, but then
Well, what
after
do-
that, I'm like,
I may interrupt. What were you playing? Like which build and
I was doing
class were you
Jug,
going for?
Sunder, SSF Hardcore, and I was gonna switch to Ellie Hit if I got Ellie Hit gear, and if not, I just Sunder all the way. I was potentially going for a Demis. Obviously, that didn't happen.
I think you're a bit off the mark on that one, probably.
Well, what did
Get back on it though. You can do it.
what did cause your untimely demise?
I just went in to a temple, and then a rare two-shot me as a Jug
Yeah.
with endurance charges. I don't know what the fuck, but apparently it happened.
Hmm.
Some of those temple rares are really brutal.
Yeah, I that's the reason I generally, when I run temples, I avoid that regen mod. That is in my opinion, it's the worst because it makes the fight so much longer. Maybe it depends on which kind of build you're playing, but for me personally, it was always the monsters, like non-unique monsters, regenerate a certain percentage of their max life per second. That's super ugly.
Yeah.
So
I haven't really had
sorry,
much trouble
Jacob.
with that. There was like in the community races, I think they did a race where pretty much like they gave them twink gear and they like beat the temple super fast. But originally they were talking about doing that without twink gear for the pros. So I tested that out, and any single time you would get even the tier 1 regen anywhere on the temple, it basically made the temple impossible for you to kill anything if you were like low level in the temple.
I can see
Yeah,
that.
Because
So,
the
but
mod doesn't scale down with level, does it? Anyway, sorry. Go
No.
ahead, Hector.
It's fine. I mean, I'm not important, right? I'm
Oh.
kidding. Anyway, I did have a few highlights of the race that I wanted to just talk about real quick. So first of all, I had a Lee Hoop from Kadiro for like 100 coins. That's pretty good for leveling. And that's about it. Oh, I had an Exalt drop too, I guess. I forgot about that. Oh, and I immediately double corrupted the tabular I farmed in Aqueducts. That was pretty ballsy of me.
Yeah, I
It
remember
didn't
that.
die.
You didn't brick it. But did you get any good double corruption, or did you
I got like reduced fire damage taken and +2 to war cry.
well, at least it didn't break.
I mean, the fire damage is pretty good in hardcore.
Well, depends. Depends.
So, are we going to be talking about Delve now?
I think you all guys can't wait, right?
For the league or to talk about it? I guess yes to both.
I just want to like delve right into it.
You gotta have a little more class than that, Eckders. It's an art, my man.
Art.
You hold back on the easy ones. You let other people. Well, I mean, I guess I let you go dive into that one. Damn it! I missed an opportunity there. See?
Wait.
Now you got me off my game.
Ah, man. I wish I was a native speaker. All those pun opportunities that I miss. But yeah, Delve League. So for everyone who hasn't seen the trailer or any material, which I usually think there's no one, but let's quickly outline the league mechanics. I'm gonna quickly cover the basic principles of the league. So there is a new infinite dungeon that you can access. I think you need a new resource, like a new currency that you collect in maps, and that's called something voltaxic sulfide, right? And you need a certain amount of that to enter this infinite dungeon called the Delve, or the Azurite mines, I think. And there you can farm a mineral called Azurite, which will help you upgrade your gear that you need in order to go down there. So when you go down there, you're following a sort of machine that gives light. It's called the crawler, and the darkness is actually threatening. So whenever you leave the crawler, go outside the light radius, you will slowly take damage. And I don't know exactly how it works. Maybe it's after a short delay or something like that from the videos that we've seen, but I guess we'll see it all in the league. And yeah, there's dynamite and flares. Dynamite to blow through walls, and flares in order to be able to go away from the crawler for a short amount of time. So you'll still have light and you won't get eaten by the darkness. And yeah, the Delve is, like I said, an infinite dungeon that scales harder and harder the lower you go. And yeah, I think one point that I want to talk about is that it's perceived as an escort league by many people, and many people were like, escort dance game, so I'm not going to play that. It seems to me that I wouldn't call it escort, because you're not actually protecting the thing. The thing doesn't have to, like, doesn't seem to have health points or anything, and you're free to go away anytime. You just need to stay next to it in order to survive yourself. But I think you're pretty independent from it, if I see it. The only thing that speaks against that is, I think they said there's some sort of monsters that use an EMP ability that would then knock out the light.
Yeah, I think those were specifically spawned. No, we don't have a lot of information on it, but from the limited information that I was able to dig up in the various articles that Chris Wilson linked in the announcement thread on Reddit, it seemed like those would spawn during the checkpoints, basically during the parts where the cart stops and you fight a large number of enemies, you fight a specific boss, or you have some sort of encounter. That doesn't mean they can't happen along the cart ride itself, but like when they were brought up in the articles was in regards to those checkpoints. So maybe they only happen then. Maybe you don't have to worry about the light being snuffed out while you're trying to wander along. Are you guys having a props arms race over here? I'm going to abstain. I don't have anything fun to bring into this.
Got some window cleaner.
Got a real life discos.
Okay. I don't.
I will put the clue.
I have a microphone and some soundproofing. That's what I keep in my setup.
And I have genuine interest in talking about Delve.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
I
yeah, me
imagine
too.
the viewers do as well.
That's having fun. I mean, it doesn't really seem like it's going to be an escort league. Like, from what I read in the additional stuff, is that if you go faster than the cart, it speeds up. If you're way behind, it slows down. It's kind of a smart mechanic. It's not going to be like lumbering along super slow. Like, come on, man, hurry up.
And it's alongside a fixed path, right? It's not like Katarina minions, just subject to really bad AI.
Yeah, if it was Katarina minions, I would probably uninstall and reinstall Diablo 3.
I think the thing that it's closer to is like an auto scroller from like a Mario game or something.
Yeah,
I mean,
That's a good point. Yeah.
unlike an auto scroller, you can go. There isn't a cap on the minecart speed. We found that out yesterday from Bex. So you can go like as fast as you want. Yeah, evidently not. Now that might change before release, but that was something that I saw Bex say in Tarky's chat yesterday.
500 move speed cart build incoming.
Yeah. I'm sure someone will make that build where they just run as fast as possible to see what the cart animation looks like at 600% move speed. But
wait, does it scale with your movement speed?
Yes, the cart speeds up to stay with you, and evidently there's not a cap. Evidently, this is from this is from Bex in a Twitch chat, so it's not the most official of channels. But take it with
shots fired.
Whoa,
I mean, things have changed from
Octavian's certainly not getting any free loot boxes anytime soon.
Oh no. Anyways, but there's no minimum speed. Well, there is a minimum speed. It doesn't stop. So you have to keep up with it or you will die. And in that way, it's like an auto scroller where, if you're playing a Mario game and you fall off the left-hand side of the screen, you can't keep up with the scroll, you die. And that might actually start to annoy some people in the higher tier delves. That's probably going to become an issue if your build isn't, capable enough to go down to that next floor. And I think that's where we'll see some complaint threads on Reddit. But that's fine. That's part of the mechanic.
But do you think that the minimum speed is going to be, you think the minimum speed is going to be so pressing? Like
eventually, yeah. I mean, if
Eventually
it's if it's infinitely scaling content, it doesn't matter if your build does 10 million DPS because there's gonna be a monster that can survive that. When the numbers go up forever, like you can have as much DPS as you want, but eventually you'll hit a brick wall, and that's where you're gonna run into the monster
that you can't kill before the crawler leaves you.
Yeah.
So for quick context for both me and everybody else here in the chat, who here has played Diablo 3 like with greater rifts and everything?
A little bit, not much.
Catmaster?
No, not at all. Never.
Okay, so I've heard like a lot of people. I've heard like reference Diablo 3's Greater Rift system. I was to kind of explain what it is. Like, pretty much they have an endless dungeon sort of thing as well. It gets increasingly difficult, higher levels as you go, and monsters get beefier, beefier, beefier. And what Octavian's kind of talking about there, that makes total sense to me, is that eventually you get to the point where like your character that was like one-shotting everything at one tier is like taking a minute to finish a blue pack.
Mm-hmm.
At the higher tiers, and like you're barely squeaking out in just enough time, like just because it's a 15-minute timer thing to finish everything. And so like, yeah, I could definitely see that. It was like, oh, you're on tier 200, that white monster is going to take like has more HP than Shaper does. So
and there's
it's
not
going to happen.
Unlike Greater Rifts, there's not an explicit timer on the depths or the delve or the dungeon or the Azurite mine, whatever term you want to use. But rather there's the sort of de facto timer of the minecart moving. You know, you can use flares, you can have a high regen tanky build, but eventually, if you aren't able to keep up, you die to the darkness. And I think that's way cooler than an actual timer, in my opinion. It's one of the things that kind of dissuaded me from Diablo 3 when I played it. Yeah. Well, I mean, even then, you have ways to play around it. You can like try to survive by, you know, dodging around the monsters that are slowly crowding into you and trying desperately to stay in the light. It sounds really cool.
Log out macro.
Actually,
there's ways to stay alive. Log out macro.
Yeah, but that won't help you much. I mean, then you're out of the mine, right? And then you wasted all your Voltexic sulfite, and you can't get back to where you were, and you'll have to start over.
Yep.
The question is also
neat, though. I think it's going to be really neat because normally hardcore players like all the guys who farm Uber Elder, like the gear that you're farming Uber Elder with is like a good chunk above what you actually need to do the fight. Like if you're a softcore player, and so it's very rare that a hardcore player is like actually right at the edge of the difficulty content, and Delve gives you that opportunity to really push it to the limit. It's going to be really amazing. But I feel like it's going to be interesting too to see how they balance some skills, because I can imagine at like tier level 100, 150, where Abyssal Cry or something like that is like the new OP because it scales like the monster life. And so you get like one monster down to 0 HP. You can't kill it because you have those gloves on that prevent you from killing things. And then you Abyssal Cry, it gets poison on it, and then boom, explodes and poisons everything else, and then cascade out from that.
Yeah, and I think if it's infinite scaling on HP, builds are going to be adapting to it. It's going to be like % damage builds are going to be king in the high depth.
Is there % damage build? Do you mean like corpse explosion, stuff like that? Yeah. Stuff that scales with the enemy corpse HP?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like how is like Desecrate and stuff going to work? And Impulses, for example, is very, very, very strong right now because of its percentage HP.
One thing that could scale defensively for monsters would be just resistances and mitigation and that sort of thing, which wouldn't be something that corpse explosions can take advantage of and would still make the monsters significantly harder to kill. Because right now, like, trash mobs and blue mobs and stuff, their res values aren't very high. So if they just scale those up a little bit, then that is going to make them a good deal harder to deal with without breaking corpse explosions even further.
I wonder
and
how
obviously, like, HP will have to scale too, but I think both things will be a factor, and it won't just be raw HP scaling the whole way down.
That's a great point, actually. I didn't even think about that.
But I wonder how infinite scaling would work with that. I mean, how can you scale resists infinitely up without ever reaching 100%?
There's a point at which you hit 100%, but probably
99.9% cold res.
Yeah,
probably at some point maybe it can hit 100%, and you just need to build even more pen.
Elemental
if you
equilibrium.
don't build enough pen, you just start not doing damage. Probably not.
You heal
immunities,
it.
Immunities like that are something that I think they've learned their lesson on since Guardians. And like Hydra was poison immune or whatever, or was that Chimera? One of them.
Yeah, both
Yeah.
I think.
Possibly.
Yeah, I think both were. Chimera was also immune to bleed, if I remember.
Mhm.
And then Phoenix was immune to Ignite, I believe. And then Minotaur was like, whatever, dude.
Bleed removal, I think. Bleed immune, I think that was it.
Yeah.
I can't even
Immunity's
remember
really
all of
bad.
these immunities. I mean, I do remember they were in the game at some point, but I wouldn't specifically be able to tell. Except for Phoenix, that makes sense thematically that Phoenix can't be ignited.
Speaking of immunities, I think they will be very popular among players. Like perma Immortal Call setups with like self-cast, increased duration Immortal Call, and tons of endurance charge gen from Jug, or going CI to just be immune to chaos damage, or getting the max res out of Pathfinder. Pathfinder was said to be getting a like small rework, and I think maybe that might herald a change to Pathfinder, which prevents them from being able to get enough flask effect on resist flasks to actually 100% cap their early resist, because maybe that messes with the delve too much.
Well, I'm 100% certain that's part of that, because
Yeah.
otherwise it's like these builds that are 1 HP, face tank anything forever with flasks. That's the only build you can do at the end game, right?
Mhm.
Because you can take that down to depths 100 million because you don't take any damage ever.
Yeah, but there's stuff like Nullifier, and I mean, those builds are completely.
But then it just becomes rock paper scissors, and that's not an interesting like mechanic.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like, oh, do I get a nullifier on this delve? No? Oh, I don't die. That's kind of boring.
No, I agree that they should take it out. It's just like it wouldn't be a free ticket to
Yeah,
delve
it
level
wouldn't be
1,000.
literal permanent immortality, but it would be so close to it that it becomes the only thing that works at that level.
Just don't get hit.
Yeah, easy.
So, let me ask you guys a quick question. What builds do you think, like just initially, what builds do you think are going to be successful in the delve mechanic?
Flicker strike, obviously.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to start off with summoners. I think summoners are going to be pretty good, depending on because they'll be able to scale with the monsters that you res.
I think that depends on if minions take darkness damage or not.
Yeah, if minions
a
take
good
darkness
point.
damage, rip minion builds.
Yeah, that's true. If they don't take darkness damage, though, I think summoners are going to be very strong.
Mm-hmm. I think Kinetic Blast looks like it could be strong because it's all indoors.
And that will also
Um,
scale off density, which
Mhm.
maybe mob density scales up and up and up as you go down. So kinetic blast becomes
Totem
more
builds
powerful as well.
might be able to work as well because it's going a little slower compared to like speed meta. So
Yeah, I
totem
mean,
builds-
Totems die so
Shine a bit.
easily.
a lot of things that are higher damage options but less mobility. I think we might see a resurgence. Not really. I don't think we're going to see the meta like swing 180 towards them, but I think we might see a resurgence in builds using staffs and maybe wands as well. So like some of these higher damage wand and staffs options, like Shimmerons, which is already relatively popular, or something like, I don't know, maybe Dusk Dawn is a pretty high damage staff, or just a Shaper Touch staff with the right rolls, because you can get a lot of damage out of those.
or that new global damage staff that has no sockets.
Something like that, because you don't have to really worry about clear speed as much if you're trying to push the highest tier delve, because so long as you can keep up with the cart, which is a very low minimum speed, and clear things while doing so, then you can push that next delve. Obviously, it's not going to be the best build for making money, and a lot of people's focus will still be making money, I think, unless the rewards from lower tier delves are like really absurd. I don't think that they're going to outdo MF sextanted mapping.
I hope that doesn't.
Yeah, like
But
that would
that's
be
a great point. I never thought about staffs coming back. That's awesome, actually.
Yeah, it's a niche for those, and for like low attack speed weapons as well. Like Breath of the Council. Chaos damage isn't exactly in vogue right now, but like it's an incredibly high DPS option that doesn't have any attack speed, so it doesn't see as much play as like Brightbeak, because you don't need that damage for map clearing. You just use a Brightbeak.
I think kind of like one of the worst builds right now in terms of mapping that will actually see a lot of strength in the delves is assassin poison builds, because you normally don't see a ton of those, but I can see like Molten Strike assassin poison, who gets like infinite almost scaling poison duration based off how many things it's poisoned recently. Well, there's a bunch of insanely tanky monsters sitting there. You pretty much have infinite poison going off all the time. It's probably gonna break the servers. And you don't like, that's not a great mapping build. It's not a great bossing build. But when you have 400 bosses on you. It's
That's
pretty
really
good.
interesting. Viper Strike. Growing Agony doesn't have a cap.
Didn't
Like
think about
Growing
that.
Agony's 2% increased damage with hits and poison for each poison on the enemy doesn't have a cap. Also, it's just each poison on the enemy, not your poisons. Go in with a
And
party
not
with a few
recently.
Quill Rain Poisoners, and then also, so you have a few Quill Rain Poisoners in the party for clear, and you have a Viper Strike guy for the tough bosses. And the Quill Rain and Viper Strike all stack poisons on one guy and get, unlimited 2% increased damage per.
Yeah.
That's
You
pretty
could get
smart.
absurd DPS, like tens of millions, not just 10 million, tens, multiple of millions probably.
Yeah, and it's like, how there's a penalty for party play and regular maps with HP and stuff?
Yeah.
You won't really feel that because you're already diving in to a huge delve. So what is like the drawback of bringing in a few more people,
Yeah, I mean,
probably make it scary, but yeah.
I don't necessarily want to go like I feel like going into like party play in the delve is like almost its own huge topic that I would love to talk about. Like, do we want to go into that now, or do we want to?
Well,
No, we could talk about that later.
Well, first of all, did I have to ask Octavian because you guys had the blessing of having the wonderful Bex in chat yesterday, and the question is, has that been clarified whether the progression in terms of Azurite and mining upgrades are character bound or league bound?
Character bound.
Character bound. Excellent.
Character bound?
Actually, no, not confirmed on the Azurite progression. That's for Delve progression. Sorry, I misunderstood the question initially. So
in terms
how
of
deep you
flare
are into your
upgrades.
Delve is character
Okay,
bound.
good.
I'm not sure about flare upgrades or card upgrades. Not sure
Okay,
about
good,
those.
because
I know about the Delve that you're digging into is character bound. So like you can't
that's fine.
have one character go into another character's dungeon. I don't know about the upgrades to the card. Sorry, I spoke too soon.
No worries. But that's also useful information.
Okay, yeah, that's useful because what I was thinking is like have a character for mapping and farming resources, and then have another character for delving.
Yeah, because
the other thing is that sort of gets in the way of that is that Voltaxic Sulfite is character bound, I believe. So you cannot.
Sucks.
Yeah, I know you can't
That
trade it.
Horrible.
It might be account bound. Maybe there's a chance that's account bound instead of character bound, but I know you can't trade it with other players.
It's gotta be count bound. I don't know, man, because I feel like you want to have a fast character for mapping that can farm the resources, and then you have like another character that delves. That's what I was planning initially as well.
Yeah, if it's not account bound, it's gonna really sour the league. I think in a big way.
Yeah,
like I want to put work in.
terrible.
I want to be able to grind it, but I don't want to do like quarry farming the temple.
Yeah.
Like whatever the cheesiest, fastest way for your character. Or it's like, okay, so you play this character in maps to like 96 or something like that, and then you respec it to be your delver, but you just like slap Wind Ripper on whatever fucking character you want to end up delving on, and just like load up the resources, and then you swap back, and then okay, I've ran all my resources. Let me 90-point regret my way back to a speed clear build. That feels terrible. Just allow me to use two characters.
Yeah, I was talking about this the other day. If the mechanic is you can farm the sulfite on your mapping character, just farm a lot of resources and then switch to another character, and then that character will be your delving character. Once you run out of resources, you can switch back to your mapping character. That'd be a good way to progress on the league. But if you can't do that, I wouldn't want to map on my delver character that's going to be pretty slow mapper compared to like an actual mapping character.
I agree with you guys, and I can see that being the way that it works. But my instinct from what I've seen of GGG's design in the past is that it will be character bound. That I have no real basis for that aside from years now of league releases and stuff.
Well, I would have to say, was Bestiary character bound?
No,
your beasts were account wide, actually. Yeah, your beasts were account wide.
So why can't they do that? Maybe make
they do.
Area...
Oh, actually, yeah. No, they have confirmed that there's like similar to the menagerie. There's a zone that they're introducing where Nico is and where your upgradable things
then
all
it's
are.
Probably account bound then, not character.
That would be awesome. I would be very glad to be wrong here. Very glad.
So with the temple, I felt like it made a lot of sense to have it be character bound, because it's like, okay, I'm working on my temple right now, my mapper, but I want to re-roll a new character. I want to level a little bit, but I can't do any incursions while I'm leveling. That feels terrible. Oh wait, it's character bound. Awesome, this is great. It's only 11 incursions anyways. It doesn't really matter, like if like it's not bound there, or if it is bound, it's really nice actually. But with like this mechanic that sounds like we're going to be putting a lot of time and effort in, if it gets reset because it's character bound, it's like, I don't want to re-roll. Re-rolling feels really terrible. And already there's a lot of complaints like, oh, I hate leveling, blah, blah, blah. I hate doing the leveling process. That's why I think like Poet's Pen is like such a great addition to the game, because you can whoop through the leveling process so fast. You just slap those babies on, and once that hits 88, you're pretty much back in the maps. But if the delve is also like, all right, and start back from square one, it's going to be...
I think the Azurite progression, like the soul fight, like the volcanic soul fight that you need to actually delve, should be account bound. But everything else, progression wise, on the card upgrades, everything like that, I don't mind that being character bound.
No, I actually think that has to be character bound. I'd find it incredibly stupid if you could fully max out your flares and your flare duration and dynamite range or whatever you can all max out there, darkness resist, light radius and stuff, and then just transfer that from a higher character to a lower character.
Yeah, it's the soul fight only that I think should be account bound.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that as well. Like in terms of like just being able to transfer the currency back and forth between your own characters.
Well,
I was wondering when you open an incursion temple in your hideout, because your hideout is account bound, do the 6 portals to the temple stay there if you log onto another character? Because I've never tried that. I've never had several characters.
Yes, they do.
So you can...
They do, but Alva refuses to follow you.
What?
On the second character. Yes. Alva will wait where you portaled out on your first character. You can't talk to her, and she won't move.
What? Okay, but
I've never...
You also can't use any of the crafting benches, or like the corruption thing doesn't work for you. And so Alpha doesn't give you the rarity and quantity buff either, but you can go and kill the boss.
What if you didn't enter it with the other character before? If you just...
It's the same mechanic as it used to be with... kind of like getting the shaper memory fragment, where like whoever opens the map owns the map, and that, you know, whether it's a different character or a different account, it's the same thing.
That's incredibly weird.
I wouldn't be able to tell you this because I only made one character.
I killed a ton of the Temple Guardian guys like with my Blade Flurry bosser off of my like Wind Fury like mappers temples. So yeah. Wind Fury, Wind Ripper. What the heck?
Wind Fury.
Yeah, I thought it was Ecktor who was playing Hearthstone recently.
Yeah, it was me. Why?
I just made a Hearthstone reference.
Yeah, I didn't hear it though.
Unintended.
Unintended.
Wind Fury, I think it was. I caught it now.
Yeah.
I had to hear it. So micromanagement, huh? What do you guys think about all that flares and stuff?
Yeah, I was actually looking at that right now as well. Like, people didn't seem to like Beast League and an additional keybind for the nets, and now we're gonna get dynamite and flares.
So I think part of the reason though for that is that the situation in which you want to use the net is the situation where there's this enraged, angry beast who's got 5 million mods and is, you know, dive bombing you with Roas charging you down. And the situation where you want to use some dynamite is when you see a wall, you know, blow up. The wall's not going to try and eat you. Maybe it's stressful when you have to.
Can I quote you on that?
Drop the flare. No, yeah, sure, sure.
You could be like 3 flares deep. Your flare's about to run out. You're trying to dynamite down the wall. There's things that are like level 120 trying to kill you at the same time. You're like, oh, dynamite.
But you don't have to aim at the things.
One of the things that the dynamite gets to upgrade is radius.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that there's going to be some times where you're like,
I wonder if the
I wish this was
dynamite
bigger.
can damage enemies.
It might be damage enemies too. It'd be pretty badass.
That would be weird in terms. How would it scale then? Is dynamite a
I
spell
have
or is
no
it an
idea.
attack? Is it global
I have
But
damage?
you
no
want it
idea.
to be keybinded, to be honest.
I just want it to damage enemies even a little bit. I don't care if it does nothing.
Should
Like
knock them
damage
back.
wise. That would be cool. That'd be useful.
Hmm.
But yeah, like I don't know. The nets, you were running away from a really scary mob and you had to specifically target that mob. And I can remember a lot of instances where, especially early in Bestiary, before they fixed the targeting, I accidentally captured a stupid little crab or something
Yeah,
that
something
happened
white.
to be running around near the enemy I actually wanted to get.
I
So
hated that so much.
Or when
Even
the red
though-
monsters summoned 1,000 things, you could
Yeah.
capture the little things.
even though like the targeting, there might be some annoyance with having these extra keybinds. It's just not going to be as compounded by further and further and further annoyance as the situations that Bestiary put you in, while also trying to, find whatever key binding you had net on.
I kind of
Yeah,
hope
switch
they
mine to F.
allow you to switch to keybinds.
They certainly will. I mean, you can switch your net keybind or your temple keybind. Mine's F
Yeah.
right now, supposed to be.
Yeah, no, unswitchable keybinds are no go. I don't think that they're going.
Could you switch
that
it
far
to
back.
scroll wheel up and down?
I really think Delve is looking up to be a pretty good league mechanic. I'm not sure. I think the early Delves are going to be a little weak though in terms of like loot compared to like MFing, but that's supposed to be like that, right? 'Cause
Well,
you
it's-
don't really want something to be so rewarding that you don't really MF or do anything else, right?
It probably has to do with that the early delves are just going to be like tutorials to teach you how later delves work, and as such, they're not going to be very challenging, but they're more like introducing you slowly to the mechanics that you'll have to deal with, and then they shouldn't be that rewarding, right? Because as soon as you acquired the skills, those would be very, very easy to accomplish and to finish, and then it would be
Well, I
easy
know
access.
I felt a similar way about incursion. Like, oh, I'm not going to do a single temple until like I get to maps. And then I know lots of hardcore players who are farming mud flats right now because like you get insane leveling items like 0 level requirement, 30 move speed boots, like 172. 35. Okay. Yeah, it's like you can get insane leveling gear. And so it might be similar. Like they might do something similar. And the delves where it's like, hey, you found insane boots. You found like an axe that has insane DPS and has no level requirement on it. And so you never know. Like I think that they're actually trying to like encourage people not to skip the mechanic early on. My question is though, if you are one of these people who skips all of the delves or all of the league mechanic until you get to maps, what happens when you go into your first one? Is
It
gonna be
catches
like,
up to you.
Catches up to you? Okay, good.
Well, I don't think it. The example that was given was that if you skip all of them and then go into maps, your delve will be like roughly level 60, I think. So it doesn't like catch all the way up to exactly where you are necessarily, but it has something of a catch-up mechanic.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty good then. I'm probably just gonna head straight to maps.
Probably that's there to be a little gentle, because once you finish the story, especially if you're not familiar with the game, though, if you're not familiar with the game, you're probably not skipping the mechanics. You're probably not finding this weird, crazy lunatic with a candle on his head and just ignoring him. But if you do
Take
that,
candle.
if you're doing
You
that,
don't take candle.
are we sure we don't want this to be a Hearthstone podcast? We could go in that direction instead. The new meta's real interesting. Anyway,
I haven't played any Hearthstone in 2 years, but maybe
what
we
was I
could do
saying?
one.
Yeah, they probably want to make sure that there's no situation where somebody has it catch up too close to them and then they just get screwed and can't actually do their delves. So they have a few levels of like grace between your level and the delve level, and you maybe have to do a little bit of cleanup work basically if you skipped it a bunch. You have to run a few extra floors. But I don't think you have to run, well, you definitely don't have to run like level 3 all the way to 68. It's just like maybe 60 to 68.
That's good to know because you don't want to be overwhelmed by your first experience in those. Oh, I guess I would like it, and I know a couple of hardcore players who like hardcore exactly because it's so merciless and punishing, but it would scare it would scare a lot of new players out of the experience, I guess.
The heck, I got this cart just ran away from me. This cart moves so fast, and I died in the darkness.
Darkness
I
ate you.
I hope the cart is super fast.
Well, there's
I don't know, man. I feel like it shouldn't be scaling with your movement speed though. I feel like that's kind of like counterintuitive. If you just run through everything. You just like put a decoy and then just run, vroom vroom.
I mean,
Yeah.
eventually though, you get to the point where you just can't really afford to do that. Maybe there's an imbalance where that point is too deep down into the delve, and there's no other way to get there, so that becomes the meta of just 600% move speed pathfinders with Queen of the Forest, dropping, you know, decoy totems and investing into fucking totem life on the tree in order to push into deeper delves. But I think
cooldown duration belt for more decoy.
I think that would be a real failure of the mechanic, and they've got to be aware that that's unhealthy. Like, I think this is the league, for instance, that Vala Immortal Call died for. Like, they're trimming away a lot of the weirder and more unhealthy things that you could potentially do to break the darkness mechanic.
Wait, what happened to Vala Immortal Call?
It died. It's gone. It's not in the game anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
That was sneaky. I didn't even know that.
Vala Lightning Warp too. It's also gone.
Bye bye.
Like, maybe there was a way with you know, enough soul generation and stuff that you could just Vala Lightning Warp the scariest monsters away from you and just skip them. Maybe that was a problem. I don't know.
They also, like, for the ones that exist still in standard, they like doubled the soul cost.
I wonder if standard will have. We obviously, League hasn't even started yet. We have no idea if it's going to go core, but I want to see standard delves. I really want to see standard delves with like mirror tier gear in every slot and see how ridiculously far down they can get.
Yeah, that is something I actually am interested in.
Yeah.
I'm normally not interested in standard whatsoever. I don't really care about like the economy over there or the gear. But that is actually something that I would watch. I'd watch
like, it's a reason.
Someone
it's
doing
a
like
mirror
gear, like everything mirror tier and just seeing how far you can go. That's interesting.
Lab was pretty interesting in that regard as well when it came out, that you could see what the people with the mirror gear, you know, could do, how fast they could run Uber Lab.
But Lab isn't quote unquote infinite, you know.
No way. But like when it was new, there was still a lot of things to be figured out. Like nowadays, obviously, it's not interesting anymore or not overly interesting to follow the Lab running meta on permanent standard. But when Lab came out and people had to figure out the things that we all know now, you know, how different Izaro phase mechanics work and how different trap layouts work, and how you can tell from the Lab layout which way you have to go and stuff.
Oh yeah, like with charge disruptors, like I didn't know for like almost 2 seasons that maybe like 2 leagues that you only needed 10 out of the total 15. You didn't have to like let him charge all the way up, and they eventually changed that, so he didn't go to 15. But I was doing it like 50% harder than you needed to.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to keep track though. I just usually wait for the voice line.
You don't count the little spinning orbs around his arm?
No, I just wait for the voice line.
You're not a professional gamer like the rest of us here, Ecktor?
Yeah, I don't count to 10. I don't know how to count.
1.
Anyways.
1, 5, 2.
So close. You'll get you'll get it next
20.
time. You'll get there. I believe in you.
One little question before we go pursue that.
No,
path
I do have to say one thing. I know how to count money really well.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Too bad money is not spinning around fat guys.
Oh yeah, I would be able to count that for days.
I was gonna ask once more, like, about the light radius. Is the crawler light radius a separate light radius from your character light radius, or is there some interaction? Because that's what people have been saying, light radius leak and stuff. But I would find it super interesting if light radius on gear was not just a meme. But I don't know. It's a meme?
Crawler light radius is its own stat that you build with Azurite.
Okay.
You
so
buy it with
there's no interaction whatsoever.
No.
Mm.
You buy it with the blue juice from the mines. It's its own separate stat. Evidently, the crawler's ability to pick up loot is influenced by its light radius as well. So the larger the light radius is, the farther away the crawler is able to shuffle loot along with you. And then at the end of a track, once you get to a waypoint, once you get to an encounter, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't like sort all the loot for you. It just spews it out onto the ground, and then you have to look through it. Sort of like
and the area in which it spews it out also scales with light radius.
What was that? Oh,
does it also spew it
Sure.
farther if it
Sure, why
has
not?
a big light radius?
That'd be cool.
It's going to be incursion all over again in terms of gear. I can just imagine the crawler having like a face and a mouth and just gobbling up everything and just throwing it up at you at the end.
Yeah, 10 uniques and you don't pick up a single one of them.
That does mean that like if you don't build light radius, which it seems like a strong stat because it just makes the dungeon easier for you by giving you more room to work. But if you don't, then maybe loot falls outside of the crawler's radius and you have to go pick it up.
Or you get to pick it up,
dangerous.
because if you abandon, you don't get any of the loot in the crawler.
Oh, like if you pour it out or if you die or something?
Yeah.
Huh.
It's like, oop, mirror dropped. Nope, it got sucked up. We have to finish this.
That's kind of a good point. Yeah, higher tier delves. Maybe you want like minimum light radius so you can get the loot. Or maybe like the whole
you
it sucks
regret
up all the loot thing.
Wait, what? So So it sucks up only the loot that you can't get to, but you can still pick up things that it didn't suck up?
So it'll suck up loot within the light radius, but like, you know how there's chests off the main path and stuff?
Yeah.
If you went and opened one of those chests, since it's in the dark, the crawler won't suck it up, so you have to click on it. So what I'm thinking is maybe if the light radius isn't big enough and some monsters die outside of it, out of its radius, I wonder if those drop things outside of the radius, or if when they're saying it picks up the loot, that's just their fancy way of saying loot doesn't drop for monsters, it drops at the end.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that works.
Like whether
Also,
it's actually mechanically picking up the loot as it goes past it, or if they're just kind of tongue-in-cheek saying that.
Incursion style, basically.
Really,
right?
Yeah, really what's happening is it's just an incursion on wheels.
It's an incursion on wheels, boys.
Incursion on wheels.
Choo-choo! Wait, that's not...
Hype train coming through.
No, but like seriously,
if that's true though, because like if it's outside the light radius and stuff drops, that would kind of make like the kinetic blast type of builds that a lot of people have been like, this is what I'm going to play, bad, because the loot's dropping way off screen and you don't get any of that loot. Then what's the point of killing the stuff off screen, right?
yeah, exactly. If you have to
Yeah, that's
still
true.
walk out in the dark in order to get your loot.
Then you'd have to like upgrade your flares and, you know, because your
Well,
light
you can-
radius would be so puny.
Like after you complete the delve, you can choose to either return back to town or you can go back along the path you did, and there'll be like little torches along the path, and you can like go back and loot, according to the Ziggy D video. But like if stuff's like way in the darkness all over the place because you're playing Kinetic Blast, that seems like that would be easy trip to standard.
Yeah, I guess we'd have to see whether or not the layouts will spawn in such a way that that's possible. You know, where there's those offshoots where monsters show up that the cart never lights up.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they
Fall
get that
cyclone
done.
meta. Fall cyclone meta.
Yeah, Vice Cyclone, reverse totem build, shockwave.
Totems.
Yeah.
I was hoping.
Now the question really is whether or not you guys are going to be playing the light dungeon radius, or are you going to be letting yourself be into the darkest dungeon?
I was honestly seriously hoping for light radius to have some interaction, so that light radius to delving would be what move speed is to mapping, kind of. And I was actually envisioning that this whole thing being an alternative endgame would take away people from mapping, and mapping becoming more useful and more, you know, desirable because less people are mapping, so less shaper items, shaper bases, elder bases are spawning, less people can sell you high guardian maps or whatever because less people have an atlas unlocked because more people are into the delve. And I was hoping that this is just the first step of many where basically Path of Exile gets like 4 or 5 kind of new endgames where everyone has to kind of sort of specialize into one endgame. Not doesn't have to, but most characters will be built around fitting into one or two of these different endgame styles, like mapping and delving, for instance. Since those are the only
like
ones.
I was saying earlier, right? Like how I'm gonna make a mapping character and then a delving character and have them separate.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And then I don't know what other end games there might be, but I have high hopes that that's actually going to be a thing. That mapping is not going to be that number one end game, like that end game thing that people strive to go at, but it's just going to be something that a minority of players does, like 20 to 30 to 40% would be mapping, and other people would be doing other things. Can you guys see something like that happening, like a shift?
At the moment, with the way it's going to be implemented, I think that will be mitigated somewhat by the fact that you need the voltaic sulfite from maps to be able to run the delve. Maybe people won't progress as far, so like end game mapping might see a shift, because there's not a large portion of the player base that does like Guardians and T16s already. So if you take some of those away from doing Guardians and T16s, which like Don, you were farming Uber Elder, what, 30 to 50, 60 times something this last league?
I've killed him over 100 times now.
Yeah, I can't imagine you'll do quite that many if you're going to be spending a bunch of your time in delves, but you'll still probably have your Atlas completed to a decent degree. Like you're still going to be doing maps. So I think general map loot will probably still be fairly available, but maybe at the top end, maybe for Guardians and for Shaper fragments and for that sort of thing, there'll be more of a there'll be a smaller market or a smaller supply.
More of a decline, yeah. Especially in hardcore, where that market is already pretty minimal. It might like decrease even further.
And that could be positive for the economy.
Yeah, and that could be positive because some people might just try to farm Guardians instead of doing Delve for money.
The like tertiary thing off to the side though that you have to think about is whether or not Uber Lab will be like just kind of kicked into the dirt with Delve. Like how many alternative end game content things can the game sustain with its player base? Are you gonna have that many Uber Lab farmers? Sort of. I feel like before some of them start to become like irrelevant.
I feel like unless things are more efficient at generating different types of like value, basically, so unless delves literally have helmet enchants, Uber Lab will stay relevant no matter what, because the less people there are farming the Uber Lab, the more rare the helmet enchants become. Therefore, the price of those goes up because supply goes down, demand pretty much stays equal. So cost, obviously will rise. So therefore, like it'll always have something or some people doing it. Like even if like delves are super profitable, but if you get a +2 tornado shot at, that's one mirror, people will still do Uber then.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think Uber Lab is ever gonna be relevant unless there becomes a way of getting enchants in a different way, be it like a
double enchants in the delve.
Yeah,
technically there's a way to get enchants differently right now. The tier 3 storage room can drop enchanted gear, but it's very rare and usually it's garbage and it's not worth charging to farm. But
yeah,
hey,
but it's randomized and it's
no, I'm not saying this invalidates your point at all. It's just an interesting curiosity that it does exist.
Because
I've never seen it.
Because for the most part, people want a chance on specific pieces of gear, be it a helmet that they're using or a certain unique. So you can get, unless you can like pull that enchant out with like a prophecy or something, and then like have it like as a consumable. Unless that happens, the Uber Lab will always be relevant.
Imagine if they had like a crafting thing where like, you could socket an enchant into like a new currency that you use on an item. Like surely they would not have anything like that coming up in Delve, right?
No.
I'm on the fence. I'm on the boat on whether or not we want to have like something like that, like a currency that's able to remove the enchant and put it on another piece of gear. Because while one thing, it would help like the SSF type of environment. But at the same time, it would devalue the enchant system that we have right now with Uber Lab.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would just like basically murder it.
Oh yeah. Well,
what you were gonna say?
With the new socketed currency, like imagine if one of the drops, like the little fossils, was rolls a blade flurry Uber Lab enchant. And it's just like, okay, bop. And it re-rolls the implicit.
I think the farthest they could reasonably go with that, if they want some overlap, would be rolls and enchant, or rolls and Uber Lab enchant. Like if you make it too deterministic, then I think that's the point at which, you know, what I was slightly worried about of Uberlab becoming far less relevant would actually become a reality. Because the other thing is, a lot of league mechanics have been excluded from Uberlab in the past, and I'm curious to know whether or not you'll be able to get Sulfite while farming Uberlab.
I'm going to go ahead and say 99% chance no.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not gonna happen. If they're gonna try and keep Uberlab relevant with the enchants, it's just like their gimmick. It's like their thing. They're probably not gonna do anything that's gonna be disastrous towards that. At most, like I said, yeah, like random Uberlab enchant from like a set of divination cards or something that are kind of rare. Maybe that might happen. But outside of that, yeah.
Like in Bestiary, I think it's the only league since I can't even remember, like that actually had the league mechanic in the lab. I was super pleased that there were all these things to catch, and then I found out like all the yellow monsters didn't really matter anyways. So there really hasn't been a league mechanic in the lab at all, almost ever. So
Outside of Bestiary.
outside of Flashback and like Mayhem and Turmoil, like there's literally been no league mechanic in the Uberlab.
Wasn't there Abysses in Uberlab? I remember someone getting Abyssal Depths in Uberlab and ripping his run because the program crashed or something like that, because it was impossible to go into the delves in lab or something like that. I heard of something like that early Abyss, but
it might have been like some sort of bug. I don't remember there being Abysses at all in the Uberlab.
Yeah, I think it was a bug.
Might have been.
I think it was. Maybe it was just disabled relatively fast. Yeah.
But yeah, generally like Uberlab feels like you're playing standard. So
I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing. You might want to get away from the mechanics.
Nah, it feels terrible.
Didn't you make an Uberlab farmer as one of your first builds every league, Don?
Every league I farm Uberlab, typically like for 3 to 4 days, as soon as I get like Headhunter or whatever my goal is for the league. But yeah, it feels terrible. It's like, okay, so I've been really enjoying the new mechanic and time to like disappear from that.
Maybe
and people are always like in chat, hey Don, how do you feel about the new league? I'm like, it was great. I haven't seen it for 3 days.
I've been forced into standard so I can make my money.
Yeah,
I've been stranded on an island with no mechanic inside.
I've been exiled to this Uberlab.
Hey, I get it.
But I've been making this sweet money.
Do you think Delve might be able to step in as your Uberlab stand-in? Do you think you're gonna be going back to it again, back to the good old reliable Uberlab, or do you think maybe you'll deign to join the rest of us down here in the mud of the league mechanic?
The plebeians in the mines.
Yeah, are you gonna be coming to the mud flats with us?
That is where the first one spawns.
I'm not 100% sure. I'm not going to like say yes or no either way, but it's like I'm pretty sure that I wanted to do something different this league, but then they changed Blade Vortex, and I've started Blade Vortex as my first build of the league, every single league since Essence. And so having this be the league where I didn't do Blade Vortex felt really wrong. So this might be the league where I don't do it. So who knows? But I also like doing the end game grind for the lab very early on, because later on it's kind of a pain in the butt. Ghost Boss is saying I'm definitely gonna do the lab. Yeah, who knows? But probably. lab
you
is
should
just
change
so
your name
good.
to Lab the Crown.
Maybe Don the Lab.
Yeah, Don the Lab.
Yeah, and then after you got your currency, then Don with Lab. Don with Lab.
Don with Lab.
That's a good one.
But yeah,
I've farmed a lot of Uberlab as well, though. I've had like leagues where I started as an Uberlab character, so I feel your pain, Don.
Yeah, I was gonna say you also do that frequently.
Yeah, I've done like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 runs in hardcore with Berserker, War Chief, Chieftain War Chief.
Which is like 20 times as many.
A lot of Infestor War Chief.
Like I normally like get 100, 115, 120 done, and then I'm done for the rest of the league.
I love lab. I'm not I'm like opposite of you, where you say you like bored of the lab and don't like it. I feel like, oh man, boom 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 boom. It's like great. Oh, that's the sound effect of me leap slamming, because I'd be leap slamming everywhere.
Yeah, I'm glad you explained, because I wasn't aware what that feeling particularly meant.
Have you not seen yourself leap slam? When you land, it's like the ground cracks, man. So it's like boom. That's where Abyss came from, by the way.
Today we learned. Did we have anything else on the agenda, Catmaster?
Agenda?
What were we moving to next?
Well, we're doing the typical Faded Connections style, where we go off topic really hard, I feel. I think we covered the first section of the Delve very well, and then there was 3 more sections which were supposed to be introduced by each one of you guys. I think we already started discussing the Infinite Depths, Infinite Azurite Mines as an alternative endgame. Don, isn't there like something like these deep cities or something, like ancient civilizations? There was different tile sets, biomes, something.
So basically what it looks like to me is what they're going to be doing is going to be reintroducing every single one of the previous leagues by having like new mechanics and new fights. I pretty much saw Harbingers, I saw Beyond, I saw Breach. I saw everything pretty much having like its own little section in there. So I'm willing to bet this is going to be the league where they kind of like add a little bit extra for everything. So you have new Harbinger fights, you're going to have a new Beyond fight, a new every fight basically. And like what that's going to be a part of, is going to vary. But I think it's going to be interesting. And there's definitely going to be a bunch of these different little civilizations. And so, yeah, definitely there'll be these different, I forget what you said, but different.
Yeah, I also don't know what the word was. That's why I'm scrolling through the post. It said something like
ancient civilizations, I think.
Deep civilizations, deep in the Azurite mine, many different biomes, lost cities from Wakelast's dark history. Each environment has its own monsters, bosses, encounters, and rewards. So probably we will see a little bit more specialization even there, so you won't only have like mapping characters, lab characters, and Delve characters, but also within Delve characters, just like within mapping characters, kind of, you'll have specialization towards certain kinds of encounters and certain kinds of bosses.
Yeah, like if you're at the Delve page, you can like kind of see like a sample map, and you can see that there's little sections there where it's like, this looks like a Harbinger symbol. This is very clearly a Breach hand coming out of the
Yeah, that's the first one everyone recognizes.
And Don, I've not.
Nemesis biome headhunter drops. Yay!
That'd be nice. I wouldn't say no, but I've not played much of the game myself. But Diablo 3, there's very much a push in Greater Rifts to try and just keep re-rolling the Greater Rifts until you get the right layout, right? The right tile set. I wonder if that's going to be there's going to be a similar approach in Delves, because you can go infinitely laterally as well, alongside the left or right. So maybe you just keep going right until you find the snow biome, because the monsters there are a bit less scary, and then you try and go downwards. If you can see what's beneath you, for instance. I'm not talking about going until you hit the snow biome, but going until you see snow biome is underneath you, and that's the next one you go into, for instance.
You could also maybe do an infinite left to right, right? Like maybe you don't want to dive deep.
But then you don't get to push the ladder, though.
Yeah,
like in the context of pushing the ladder, you look for the easiest biome to try and push into.
Yeah.
I feel like you're combining Diablo 3 and Terraria there for a hot second, and I kind of like it. Sort of similar. But yeah, like definitely in Diablo 3, they're like, I think one of the biggest problems with Greater Rifts is that like the end game, you pretty much just like reset your Greater Rift over and over and over again until you have the right layout, you have the right monster types, you have the right boss, and you happen to get the right like conduit shrine right at the beginning of the Greater Rift. And so you kind of wait until everything aligns to potentially get the best time. and I hope that mechanic's not really there in this, because I feel like that would feel really crappy.
Isn't it hard to avoid though? I guess it depends. I think the way they avoid that is by not giving the knowledge to the player. Like, because then it becomes dangerous if you give the player knowledge of what they're facing up against. Because even if there's like absolutely minute differences between, you know, this biome spawns some more porcupine mobs or something, and maybe your build can't deal with those very well. You know, you don't have corpse destruction somehow, which probably that's a bad example, but this biome spawns a bunch of mobs that use Flicker Strike, and we're so far down into the delve that if a monster gets next to you and hits you, you're dead. So Flicker Strike is just impossible to deal with at this point. So you definitely don't want to go into the mushroom forest biome because you'll just die instantly. So if you have any information on that,
you don't want to go to the 420 biome because then you become high and you don't know where you're going, right?
Sure. It's just like when you get to the point where there's infinite scaling, as soon as there's one non-numerical difference that you can take advantage of, it's going to be incredibly important that you do so, because there's not going to be other margins you can progress on.
Yeah, because once you get to a point where the numbers just scale, you just gotta like be able to do a specific thing and then just keep pushing with that. So I understand what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but then you might have to like go back laterally. Like no matter what you do, I think that's definitely gonna be a problem. Like unless it's so costly to run one, and then it's just still gonna feel bad because you're like, okay, like I'm just gonna still grind out this. Like I'm gonna run 100 maps so I can like buy the resources to do another roll. I don't really know how to deal with that.
What do you guys think of a reset?
What do you mean a reset?
Like on the character, like if you can reset the depths and start from one.
I mean, that's sort of, I don't think that there'll be a hard reset, but you can in a way reset by just going really far to the right or left, and then you have completely different stuff underneath you.
Oh no, there's a hard reset. It's called dying in hardcore.
Yeah, well, that too. No, I mean that's a reset. You just go to standard. Just play standard.
But you don't take your delve progress to standard.
That's true.
Exactly.
Sourfire, though, I just want to address something in chat. It says the main reason you have to fish for layouts in D3 is because it's not possible to make the timer in time without the perfect layout. And he says we won't have a timer in delves. We won't have a like literal timer in that the instance will close if you don't finish it in 15 minutes or whatever. But the cart will be a timer, like a de facto timer. It has a minimum speed that it goes. It won't stop for you. And if you can't clear monsters quickly enough to keep up with the cart and not die, you'll just die to the darkness.
Yeah, like what if they add monsters that have like bear trap, for example, like old bear trap, where it's like you get stopped, you can't move, the cart's going bye-bye, and once you have like 20 of them alive still and you can't kill them, you dead.
Yeah, and you avoid the biome where the bear trap mobs spawn as a result.
You can flame dash, but you know.
Can't you also leap slam?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Leap slam OP.
Or like what if there's like a ton of knockback characters that like just knock you away from the cart? Like more of them there are. There's like a whole bunch of things they could do.
Just move around at the speed of light and dodge all those traps. Be like the Matrix and stuff. You're just dodging everything.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can have like a party person and then have him tank them all and die in hardcore, and then you just move on. Leave them for dead.
Just go for Rules Fur because you can get it now with the bestiary cards, and go phase run and get 100% reduced visibility against monsters, and then they never fight you, and you just stand next to the cart and run along. But it's only up half the time, so the other half the time, don't get hit.
On a side note, there are people were talking about for Rules
So
Fur,
what you're telling me is half the time have phase run, and the other half the time have a decoy.
Yes, actually. That could
But
work.
you only get Feral's Fur's aspect if you have an aspect from another thing, like the helmet.
There were screenshots of capturing beasts.
exactly
on the release page.
Well, that was a mistake because there was also the Bestiary trailer.
Yeah,
or
all
the
of
Incursion
trailer.
trailer. But I spotted something. No. Someone pointed out on a Reddit comment somewhere that in the Ziggy D Delph video, at the 7-minute mark where he goes into the treasury room in order to claim his ancient treasure, that there is a beast net logo. There's a net symbol on top of the skill bar indicating that he has 0 nets of the type that he has currently equipped.
It could also just be a meme.
Yeah, it seems though like if Ziggy makes a video, like it's really hard to see that as an oversight because he gets all the footage from GGG, I'm pretty sure, or he records it himself there. So I think they'll really carefully pay attention to what information they'll let out and what they keep in.
I mean, there's relic bestiary items. There's a new card that's coming out that gives you a bestiary item. You can get all of the aspects from bestiary items. Just we were crafting them before. I would love to see a fossil that is like
a beastcraft,
beastcraft fossil, like gives you an aspect of the cat. And so that would be really cool because like slapping that on like a shape receptor or something like that would be even harder to get a good, like amazing tier one aspect of the cat receptor.
There's one thing that I want though. Like this is just a small like quality of life, but I want to hear "You are captured, stupid beast" whenever you craft with the bestiary. I just want that. I'm sorry. I know it's a weird thing.
You can get a
but
soundboard if you really want to hear that.
You know, the guy
but I want to hear it in game. It's different.
The guy who voiced Einhar is the same guy who's voicing this League NPC, Nico the Mad. Which was impressive to me because the voices are not exactly very similar to each other. Yeah. They're both they're both very much full of personality and well done, but they're not that close.
Well,
one feels more like Dark Souls and the other one feels, well, I don't know how Einhar feels, but he feels capture-y.
Capture-y.
Einar feels a little bit like a comic.
Yes, Davo. He is most likely a voice actor. Well spotted.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's his job.
Yeah, it's almost like it's his job.
I'm lauding him for doing a good job. I'm not surprised the voice actor can voice act. I'm impressed at the range.
Oh, yeah, that's a good save.
I didn't know voice actors can act.
If only it was like a part of their job title or something.
Yeah, I thought they only voice, and they don't act.
Yeah, I thought it was just voice. I thought actor was just like to make it sound more professional.
Speaking of Don's idea with the socketable currency item in bestiary, we haven't talked too much about Essences Part 2.
Yeah, do you want to quickly give us an overview of this feature of the socketable currency?
Yeah, it's sort of, in a way, build your own essence with... The mods are a lot different than Essence, though, where Essence would, like, guarantee a specific mod on a specific base. It seems like, from what we've seen, these mods are more a moderate amount of control. So unlike what Don was saying, where you know... And this doesn't disallow these from also being a part of the mechanic. Like, perhaps they'll add really direct things that just give you, you know, plus 50 strength or whatever, you know, like what an Essence does. But I think to avoid overlap, what they're likely going to do is make it so that they operate more like what we've seen from screenshots, where you get more chance for physical damage mods, or, you know, less chance for elemental damage mods, or there's one which makes your rolls lucky, which is really interesting, where it'll basically, when you use the item, it rolls twice on the mods that it rolls, and I guess it determines what it has, and then it rolls the ranges twice, and it gives you a better range. And
what happens if they roll the same mod but of different brackets, and then it's like a 50-50 of whether or not you get like a merciless or like one of the low ones. I kind of forgot the name.
Sharp.
What do you mean different?
Like let's say there's an item that says it rolls the mods twice. Like you get the same mods throughout, but like the brackets, the divine brackets would be different. Let's say
that's what
have no, but you were saying within the same bracket, weren't you?
No. Obviously we don't know how it works yet. Maybe it works that way, but I think when it says lucky, it's taking the better of two rolls, it rolls determines, okay, this is going to have physical damage, and then it determines, will this be like cruel or sharp, or will this be merciless or tyrannical, and whichever one is better is the one that keeps. I have to imagine it works that way, or else it's not really all that good. I don't know of a way that we could find that out though, even when we have the item in game, because depending on how rare it is, you might not be able to run enough trials to really know how it works.
Yeah.
But basically, to go a little bit more in depth on the mechanic as a whole, rather than the one specific thing of it being able to roll lucky mods, you get this sort of secondary currency item where you get what's called a resonator, and that can have a certain number of sockets. And then you get I don't know what the bits and pieces are called. I think fossils. Yes. You get fossils, which each have an individual effect on the item that you roll them on. And you can put the fossils into your resonator. You actually have to do that before you use them, I believe. And then you can use the resonator in the item. And in a way, you're building a more powerful alch, or building a more powerful essence. And you're still taking a normal item and turning it rare, or taking a rare item and re-rolling it. It has that functionality of an alchemy orb or a chaos. But you have a bit more control in that you can cause it to, say, roll more physical mods, roll more attack speed mods, and roll lucky if you're trying to roll on a jeweled foil and you want to make a decent fizz jeweled foil.
Can it also roll essences?
Can you? One of the ones has a corrupt essence mod.
Yeah,
nice.
That they previewed, and there's even some mods that we don't necessarily have. So if you look at the hat that they added, which is cutely Havoc Keep. It has minion gems, mana, lightning res, and then 15% chance to gain an additional Vol Soul on kill. And nearby enemies have -15 to lightning resistance. So those last two mods we've never seen that on a hat before.
Yeah, crafting for me, it's half and half. I love crafting, but I hate crafting. If that makes sense.
I mean, yeah, I can understand that. The thing that I really hope that is very different than our experience in Bestiary is that in Bestiary we were teased with these really cool things like, ooh, make an imprint of a magic item. And then it's ooh, I never found one the entire league.
Hey, this looks like a really interesting mod. I can split an item in two. Oh, I never found the monster.
Part of the reason why Bestiary was a failure is actually demonstrated there perfectly, because if you knew which beasts you needed to farm and where they spawned, which that information was given to you nowhere in game, where beasts spawned, you had to just find that out trial and error or look it up online or something, then those recipes weren't actually that hard to complete. I made a lot of money by selling the key bottleneck beast, the rarest beast, to the imprint recipe. I probably sold 30 of them over the course of Bestiary League, because if you specifically farmed ley lines, and they'd spawn one out of every dozen maps, and if you got lucky on that one out of every dozen, you'd be able to capture the right beast with the right mods and make a good amount of money.
And didn't capture the wrong beast.
Yes, but how were you supposed to know that, aside from looking it up on the wiki and testing it a bunch in game? And I don't know, maybe that was the point of the mechanic.
Because I follow Octavian 0 on Twitch, and he was showing the people how to make the mad money with Bestiary.
But
I was not following Octavian O on Twitch because reasons.
Aw,
I am now.
okay.
And that's why you're broke in Bestiary.
Yeah, I think I was broke.
But the new upcoming mechanic is I think it's going to be a lot more accessible. It still could have some problems, because
but at least you know where
complex.
you find it.
It's going to be so much more straightforward.
Yeah.
It's you don't have to capture this beast. It's in the depths.
Well, the currency items, guys, the currency items literally tell you what you can use them for. When you captured a beast, you didn't know what that beast was good for unless you looked through
the recipe. Yeah, you had the recipe, and you went and found the recipe in the book. It was the complete opposite. We're getting
what you're telling me,
beasts are on the other end of the spectrum. So we're starting off, as opposed to being all right, you have the thing, but you don't know what it does unless you already have everything. And it's going to be on the other side where it's you have the thing, you know exactly what it does, but you're not necessarily sure how to use it correctly. So it's going to be nice.
So what you're telling me, Don, is that you needed the Bestiary manual in real life as well to know this information right there and then, right?
I mean, no joke. I had a little notebook that I kept notes of where the beast spawned and all that sort of thing when I was trying to figure all that crap out.
Yeah, I would expect people actually had to do that.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
it was
crazy.
so over convoluted and complicated that I wouldn't be surprised. That's why I kind of just ignored the mechanic. I just captured whatever beasts were there. It's like, oh, cool! I can get my 5 prophecies now. Cool.
That's
And,
honestly
just-
how I felt like in the entirety of Path of Exile was when I started playing the game. So I wouldn't actually have minded Bestiary being a league at the time that we got Talisman or around that time.
Ugh.
That would have been completely fine to have Bestiary because it would have fit with the general vibe of the game. But now that it's more and more, I don't want to say streamlined, but certainly more beginner friendly, you get a lot more tutorial, you get a lot more availability of in-game information. People just don't expect from the game and probably don't have the motivation to alt tab out of the game in order to look at third-party information sources. Like back in the day when I started.
Path of Exile definitely does have like a third-party website problem where it's like, oh, for example, with Flashback, oh, you want to know what mods or what zones? Well, either look them up yourself by opening up the map or go to PoCraft, which people still don't really use, but there's no real way to tell in the actual game what the heck's going on. That would be nice. If only we had like a atlas of like all the maps that you could potentially do that could have that information on it. But like, I feel with Bestiary is even worse because we have a wiki. All these monsters were in the wiki, but it'd be like, there's no information about this. There's no information about this. There's no, because it's all community driven. And so it felt super bad.
I understand why they want the players to have this knowledge, like figure out the knowledge. But when you have a league like Bestiary that's really complicated, you kind of need to like give some information. You can't just like, here you go. Here's a new mechanic. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
Explore everything.
I was saying this yesterday, but like one of my after playing a lot of games and playing a lot of Path of Exile and other games in general, I think one of my like biggest concerns when it comes to a complicated game is how they handle explaining things to new players and how they handle creating difficulty that way. If your game is only difficult because it's obscure, it's not truly difficult and engaging, and it's going to lose players as soon as they've figured out all the different how your game works, all the different rules. Like, your game should do a very good job of explaining what each thing in the game does, and then should also not make things easy to use, if that makes sense. So you should never have a misunderstanding about what the skill that you're using actually does when you use it. Never be a misunderstanding about what the currency item or weapon or item that you're holding actually does when you equip it. But the game also shouldn't tell you how you should best use that item. That should be up to you. Finding the synergies between things, finding the best ways to build your character out of the tools you're given. But the game shouldn't make the tools obscure. That's not interesting and like actual depth of gameplay. That's just obscurity and annoyance.
I have to agree because, well, there is a certain amount of knowledge that you need to learn about a game. There's always going to be like a certain. It's like there's going to be a certain balance between between difficulty, just because you don't have this knowledge, while actual difficulty. You want to have a good balance, but you don't want to. You need to have I don't know where I'm going with this, but that's basically
Yeah,
it. You need to have a
lots of
balance. You
things.
can't make a game complicated just based on knowledge, because you're just going to get bored after you get that knowledge.
Well, there's lots of like obscure things in Path of Exile. Like, I didn't know for a long time that like the bow tag on a skill gem meant that it's also a projectile.
Same
It's
here.
like,
Yeah,
I was like, oh, like rain of arrows. Like, oh my God, I can't take any of these projectile nodes. Blah blah blah. I'm like, wait, Path of Building says this is a DPS boost.
For the longest time, I thought that the projectiles on Molten Strike would actually deal projectile damage, because that would make sense to assume. It's area damage, it's projectile damage. But no, melee damage and projectile damage are mutually exclusive, and melee damage can never be projectile damage. So it's melee area of effect damage, even though it's technically a projectile and it scales with projectile speed to some sense, and it scales with, point blank and stuff like that, apparently. It also doesn't scale with projectile damage.
I thought that it was scaled by projectile damage. So
Is it? So then clarify that to me, because I'm really confused.
I'll have to look it up in Path of Building, but
Yeah, I'm
that's a
fairly sure the
different topic.
projectile portion of Molten Strike does scale
It's
up
okay,
cross
Cat, to be
damage, but-
wrong. You're not very good at the game. It's okay.
Dang, yo. That was the last time Ecktor's was ever heard from.
Retract the clause there, little.
We'll see. What this
Oh,
just
sorry,
goes
guys.
to
Ecktor is
illustrate.
disconnected from the call.
Oh, sorry, we lost him.
I mean, the accuracy of the
you
statement
hear me?
notwithstanding, like that, the accuracy of the statement notwithstanding, like someone who streams the game as often as Catmaster does and plays the game as often as Catmaster does, still having confusion to any degree about how a skill operates like that is a sign, perhaps, of too much obscurity, too many layers of obfuscation in the game. But it's the difficult part for the dev comes with trying to make that depth available to players without making it inaccessible. And Path of Exile has actually done that in a lot of cases really well. I would say that the currency system, just the baseline currency system of Alex and Chaos and Transmutes and stuff, has an incredible amount of elegance and simplicity while still maintaining a lot of depth. There's a lot of interesting things you can do with crafting, and particularly once you get master crafting into the mix. That's really, really, really neat. And yet the currency system can also be easily understood and used at a basic level by a new player. You know, they see what an alchemy orb says it does, and they use it on a white item, and it makes it rare, and they get some mods. So, like, that basic concept of the game is part of the reason, I think, why the game is so incredibly successful and why it's dominating in the genre. But they're just not always that consistently elegant with their design. And I want to see them keep going in that direction and not go towards...
To be fair, though, they've done a great job for what they started with as a small indie company. They're still a small indie company, I've been told, by Redditors spamming in the chat, but you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like whenever this topic comes up, I'm always too negative, and I'm just like, Path of Exile is an encyclopedia that's written in a different language that's, you know, you have to read backwards and upside down. It's not quite the case. There are certainly some... There's a reason it's so popular, and there's some successes of elegant and interesting game design, but that's one of the reasons why I'm so harsh on it whenever there are some obvious just UI errors or really weirdly worded things. Like, I made a video on the topic about Calm's Roots. You've probably played with Calm's Roots and realized that tar ground slows you still.
Yeah, it's crap.
Do you know why that happens?
Nope.
Calm's Roots says you cannot be reduced below your base movement speed. Tar ground reduces your base movement speed and then slows you. So tar ground changes your base move speed. So technically Calm's Roots is still correct. But can you blame a new player or even a veteran for reading Calm's Roots and going, oh, I can't be slowed?
Yeah,
Like that's not technically what they do. 90% of situations you can't be slowed, but technically that's not what they do.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a big problem where there's no real in-game encyclopedia for you to be like, what exactly does tar ground do? How does it work mechanically? It's like if the debuff's on you, you can like hover over it as you're trying not to die, but that's not really a great option. And so like sometimes the wiki might not be the right thing, so you're trusting like maybe like PoDB or these people that are, you know, digging into the patch files. And yeah, also for the record, the Molten Strike projectiles do scale off projectile damage and not melee damage at all.
Exactly. I was looking for a break to throw that in and correct myself. My misconception was that being a melee projectile back in the day. That's like 2 or 3 years ago when I started to play the game and started to learn the game. I did not understand, and I always thought that the projectiles must be affected by melee damage as well because they're melee projectiles. That was my misconception. I had that all wrong in that moment where I tried to illustrate that. But again, it just, you know, supported the point that it's all very confusing and probably only really easy to understand if you're consulting the wiki rather than playing the game itself.
Criticize out of love, Octavian. I get you.
Yeah. Somehow we got there from socketable currency items, though.
Yeah, that's a good
which is what
It was a faded connection.
Faded with a D. 2D.
Wow, is it 420 time already?
It's way past that here. So let's see.
Like on the topic list here, kind of talk about like risk versus reward. And like I also kind of would like to add in here party play versus solo. Because one of the things that's kind of come up like in my chat and something that I think is probably going to be important in terms of the leaderboard is that if they don't have different leaderboards for solo players in the delves and groups, that the entire leaderboard is going to be Aura Boys and DPS. And like solo players will have no potential chance to even be on the leaderboard in any way, shape, or form. Like you must play with a support, otherwise you're not gonna be relevant.
You know, let me just voice in my inner Redditor. Why don't you just play SSF, XD?
That that would become a legitimate thing, that people would start to only really consider the SSF ladder as being competitive. You know, not everyone obviously, but there'd be an undercurrent of that just like there is right now with the race ladder, where there's more of a focus in the community on the solo self-found hardcore race ladder, because that's what's considered to be the most ethical, I guess. But in even more, you can break your point down even further, Don, and say like, well, will there be a different race ladder for 2-man parties and 6-man parties? Because there's a massive difference between what those groups would be capable of. Would they all be lumped into party ladder? Would you have to get a 6-man party together in order to compete on party ladder?
I think there should be different ladders for each one of those configurations. So like solo 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or maybe just even make it so you can only do like 2 to 3 or 4-man parties maximum. Because like a 6-man group is like pretty much going to disconnect you with a lot of the different particle effects. So I never really have felt, I've never at any point in my Path of Exile career.
Hey, they said they make improvements to the engine.
Yeah, so like this actually, like when I heard about the depths, I was like, oh my god, this is exactly why they're bringing in these party improvements, so people like can party in the delves. But I really have never felt like Path of Exile is a party game.
Party play, PoE.
Yeah, party play and PoE, Don's game.
It's like party play for me is like, oh, are you an Aura bot? Yes, great. Come follow me. Are you not an Aura bot? Oh, I don't want to play with you.
Yeah,
it's a lot of party play.
Not balanced that way. It just feels so terrible to play with friends.
I feel attacked.
Well, no, yeah, you're attacked because you do 6-man chain of map for like loot. Yeah.
It was back in Abyss League. Me and a group of friends from my guild built a party specifically to take the MF aspect of parties to like the utmost degree. We had a character who had every quant item you could fit onto a character. Didn't do any damage, but everyone else in the party had Southbound, brought everything to 1, and then the MF color just last hit everything. And because party quantity bonuses are multiplicative against player quant bonuses, like they're a more multiplier, in the same way that, you know, a more multiplier from like Ellie focus on a gem works against increased damage. You have increased quant from your color multiplying against 50% more currency per player in the party. You ended up getting just, like, actually, if you hit alt, you would crash.
Yeah,
I remember the game could not display enough loot. That you were doing vaults, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Back when vaults was good.
Back when vaults was a map, yes.
Yeah, now it's like off the mat list. It's like they dragged the map out of the paper and then threw it into the trash can, and that's why you do vaults now.
One of my proudest moments. I'm not certain this was me in my group, but I have to think that we were at least part of it. One of my proudest moments as a player of Path of Exile was the Bay Classed episode that Chris Wilson was on. He said that part of the reason for the Sextant nerf was because there were groups of players who were generating more loot in a map than the servers could handle, and you would take up most of a single server's capabilities.
I wonder,
like our maps were taking up like almost a full server worth of computational power to run, apparently.
I wonder who it was.
Definitely not Octavian.
It was fun times. So I mean, there's legitimacy to party play in Path of Exile, but there's definitely also that feeling among the community that people don't want to play parties in this game.
Yeah, see, party play with a group of people that you know and know how to play with, great. Party play with randoms,
And I feel like, especially as a streamer, party play is really hard because, like, if you want to be on voice comms with even like just one other person, like your chat interaction suffers. Period.
Indeed, that is true. Yeah, I remember playing with a couple people, robots and stuff, and it's a little harder to manage.
And so, like, I can only imagine with 5 other people, you either like communicate with your party or you communicate with the chat. And like, I mean, not saying that like it's bad, but like lots of times when I go and I watch other streamers and they're like chatting with friends, they do to really pay much attention to the chat. And it's, for me, like the streamer's chat engagement is a big element of why I like to watch a streamer. And yeah, I just don't like watching streamers when they're like in a chat with somebody else, unless the person they're in the chat with is also reading chat and interacting with it, which is very, very rare. Yeah, so I like, as a streamer, I'm like, if this game really pushes towards party play, I'm going to have to play solo self-found, which I don't want to do. I don't really like solo self-found as much as I like Trade League.
So like my take on it is like, hey, I like watching you come to my hideout and give me your money, and then you can kindly out my hideout, right? That's basically it. I kind of muted myself there because I was about to say a bad word.
Well, I would like to raise the point that, you know, Octavian, like Ecktor said, sorry guys, confusion, too many vowels and consonants in the English language. What I'm trying to say is Ecktor said that party play is only fun if you're doing it with a group that is well coordinated and well put together. And I think that is even more so in a delve, because if you think about the responsibilities with keeping charges on flares, on dynamite, and not delving away too far from the thing, and I think I heard that on someone else's stream or in the Bay class. Where was that with the? Wait, you were supposed to save your flares. Who has the flares now? How are we gonna get back to the crawler?
You can maybe even make like designated flares, designated bombers and stuff. Could be interesting.
We were talking about that. I think that there's a distinct possibility that only the person who owns the delve can bring in flares and dynamite, and like they're the ones who are able to throw said.
So they would be the designated flares and bombers. So your party leader would have to be good on them then. If not, your whole team wipes, especially on hardcore.
I kind of hope that's not the case, because I don't want to be stranded in a situation where, you know,
you can't flare.
I don't want that, but at the same time, I can see the fun in it.
Also, what happens if
that person logs out or disconnects? Yeah, what if the party lead disconnects and it's like, whoa, no flares, bros. Yikers.
I think it'd be kind of cool if you could just have a designated one and like a backup one. So like the main flare and like a side flare or something. For like team coordination, I'm saying.
All this team coordination stuff aside, we've all done master rotations. Ecktor's, I'm sure you've done a lot of masters with randos before.
Don't get me started.
How well does it go when you're doing like a random Donna? Typically what happens...
Varici.
All right, so here.
Yeah, Varici, for example. I remember doing Varici back in the day, being like, looking for more Varici 7. Link me your single target skill.
Okay. Sorry, I was like bringing in past traumas. Okay.
Yeah. So like, just imagine that, but now in delves, because you want to compete. You're trying to find random people to get good in. I mean, so you're testing out these new players, and oh god, you're just blowing your resources on these delves with randos now. And yeah, what little hair I have on my head falls out.
See, this is why I'm saying you want coordinated teams. Because with randos in rotations, for example, you get like the scammers that don't have their rotation up at all, and they just come in to take a few missions and then leave. There's the people that don't leave a map for a while. They want to complete the map for some reason while doing a Zana rotation when you're supposed to do it quick. There's the AFK people that don't do anything and don't help. I'm included on that, by the way, because I do that a lot. But I have a good reason. It's because I have a lot of missions coming in, so I can't have to get invited for other parties and stuff. And it's it's so convoluted.
Slightly off topic, but still to do with partying and delves and stuff. Who's the minecart tied to in a party? Who determines the minecart speed? Or is the minecart speed determined by the slowest player?
You just PK your friends like, all right, guys, get my 600 move speed. Whee!
The game calculates
said
the
that in
average
chat.
position of all 6 players.
Someone said that in chat, and I was wondering how that would be handled. I think the best way to do it would be determining it by the slowest player, because the super speedy guy, if he wants to run off into the darkness of his own accord, that he can control whether or not he does that, and if he does, he dies. But the juggernaut with Calm's roots on and attack speed
build.
I feel like it would be better to do it on the slow. It just makes the most sense anyway. So the speedy guy might be flaring and picking up the extra loot on the side because he's really fast and can get to the chest. And then you have the slowest guy holding the line on the crawler to make it as slow as possible so that the fast guy can get back in time.
That actually sounds like a legit strategy. Because then you can keep the cart going slower so you have more time to loot. Though, because it leaves behind a trail of lights, you will be able to go back and loot afterwards. But I guess that makes, getting the loot and getting the cart to the encounter a bit quicker, so maybe you can get into deeper delves that way.
Yeah. That's something that you wouldn't really think about solo, but in party play, it could be a viable strategy.
I definitely find it interesting that there will be different strategies for solo and party play. And
But yeah, funnily enough, though, 99% of people will just play solo, so
that will make streamer content more interesting if there's streamer who are doing really group push, looking to optimize groups towards going as deep as possible. Because not everyone can pull that off, right? Not everyone has 4 or 5 friends who are as deep in Path of Exile as they are themselves.
Yeah, I have 0 friends, so.
Aww,
0 friends who are as deep in Path of Exile as you, or 0 friends, period?
I'll be your friend, Ecktor.
See? Now I got a friend.
Aww.
We'll never play, though.
but it's also like all right, so let's say you have friends, so let's say me and you, CatmasterOP, want to do some delves, but I'm on the DC server. What server are you on? No, I'm definitely not playing on that one. So
on your thing.
Path of Exile is not really a team game. It's I, for example, played Fortnite a little bit with some guys in the EU and everything. The game feels smooth. Path of Exile, if I tried to do race practice on the London server when we were racing with Freak, and it was a completely different game. And so I can only imagine trying to actually do serious end game content at a 1 to 200 ping difference from your normal play. Not gonna happen. So it's not only do you have to find people to play with, they have to be on the same server, and it's just oh my gosh, this is terrible.
Yeah, I'm done. There's an easy fix for that though. You just move.
Yeah, let me just move, man.
Yeah.
Why don't you guys
grab
move to
thousands
DC?
of dollars and just move? It's simple.
I'll start the donation goal today, Ecktor's.
And move to my my doggy house. There's a whole setup there. It's all ready for you.
Sweet, dude.
Also, what do you guys think about the socketable currency thing? How many sockets do you think it's gonna have, in total? Are you thinking it's gonna be 6, or is it gonna be 4?
The top one they showed was 3, but
I think you could have another one. Yeah.
There's a picture on the Delve release site on the socketable currency items one. So they show the actual items. There's one with 1, one with 2, one with 3. but then the background behind that is a resonator that looks like it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sockets. And that might
that's actually a like a dodecahedron. That's like a 10
Yeah,
sided.
the decoration. Yeah, I feel like it might be able to get another one though by like how it is. Like there's easily another spot for it, like on the bottom left.
Yeah, but if you look at the ones that they show, even though the second one is like a sort of pyramid shape and it could theoretically have a third socket on the back, it's showing 2 sockets, and so it has 2 sockets. The other one is showing 3 sockets, and so it has 3. So I think it's the number of visible sockets if we're going by that metric. Which,
Yes, I bet you get a 6 there.
Well,
Definitely.
those things are heavy. They have to stand somewhere. So that's the bottom side that we're not seeing, right? That's
Yeah,
you can't
you-
socket
you
something
can't
on the
use
bottom
that.
side.
Damn, you calling that resonator fat? Fat shaming all over.
If you want to call yourself a resonator.
many socketed is the preferred term.
Hey man, I can only say I resonate very well with food. Okay.
Yeah, but I think it will be reasonable to speculate at least 4 sockets, right? Because we see 4 things socketed on the thing in the background. Yeah, there is 2 sockets on the side here as well, so possibly 6 sockets. Oh, but that would be sick.
Yeah, but I just hope that 6 socket thing is not like a 1 mirror item. Like, make them more common. My argument for League stuff is always like, I want it to be OP. I want it to be all over the place. I don't want it to be mirror shards again.
I think there's a real
Raise your hand
chance.
if you found a mirror shard. Oh wait, not me.
I think there's a very real chance that the 6 socket one would be quite uncommon.
Yeah, I want it to be.
I don't mind it being
I'm not
uncommon.
disagreeing with you, but I think that like is too much deterministic crafting power, and GGG are really afraid of deterministic crafting power and deterministic farming in the game in general. Like, if you look at how uncommon div cards are for a lot of different things, to the point where they're like irrelevant for something. If you're trying to farm the div card that gives you a random T5 map, you just get all your T5 maps done before you can get that card set. Like,
So true.
deterministic farming and deterministic crafting in Path of Exile has long suffered, and kind of for good reason, because it's balanced around trade and balanced around a large player base and makes it really hard to make it actually doable as a single player.
But this could be the league where they're like, you know what? Just for this league, we're gonna make it ridiculous.
I kind of want to. I'm kind of like in the middle ground. I don't want things to be uncommon, like Don said, like no, make it too rare. But at the same time, you don't want something really common either, because you kind of want to have a grind to get to that place. But you don't want to make that grind so unrealistic that you basically can't get the item. You know, Zephyri's amulet comes to mind.
Yeah, like Zerfi's, the mirror shield last league. It was just like, man, that'd be really cool to use, but it's like worth 2 mirrors right now. What the heck? So like, I think like I want to be able to use these 6 socket things. I want to be able to like mess around with it. And just because you get like a really nice deterministic alk doesn't mean you're gonna hit what you want. How terrible would you be like, all right, so I got my perfect 6 socket alk.
You can also imagine someone messing up a Chaos Resonator and making it so that no mods can spawn when used.
What if you can't take
Unsocket
the fossils out and you put the wrong one in to your 20x resonator, and now it's ruined because it's going to, you know, avoid rolling physical mods, and you meant to use that on your jeweled foil or something.
Yeah, that's
also friendly reminder that when gems are socketed in items and you go to trade them, you don't see the gems in the trade window.
Oh god.
Oh yeah, that's something actually. Yeah. So if they make it,
I fucked up my resonator. I'm going to sell it to this guy for 20x. Oh,
yeah,
what the heck, dude? This is a bricked.
That's an oversight. Yeah.
This is a bricked resonator.
That sounds like something some character in Star Wars could say. You sold me a bricked resonator.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who'll be like, oh yeah, I can scam people with resonators. Feels good, man.
But seriously though, I think that would be really stupid if you couldn't unsocket them.
Yeah, it'd be pretty stupid. But maybe like there's a corrupted one that makes it so you can't do that. That'd be kind of cool. It'd be like, like it makes it so it's like, let's say it's cheap, and then you just get all the rolls already, and then if you get lucky with the fall, you can make a lot of profit, and then that's kind of cool, right? One that drops already socketed could be interesting.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see how that pans out. But no matter how successful the socketable currency items are going to be, no matter how much value they add to the crafting meta and stuff, we definitely know for sure what the next special stash tab released by GGG will be.
Yeah,
Resonator
currency tab.
Yeah, there's gonna be a new tab. I mean, they're trying to milk this game for all they got, 10 cent. It's just gonna happen. So they're gonna make it so that you're gonna have to buy a new socket. Maybe there's gonna be one for reliquary keys as well. Talking about reliquary keys, what do you guys think about the chances of them? Like how rare they're gonna be?
Well, maybe we should first introduce the audience to the idea that reliquary keys are coming back in a form that they haven't been there before, where like the previous iteration of reliquary keys would grant you access to legacy items that are not in the game in this shape or form anymore, like the 1000 HP Calm's Heart. The new reliquary keys are not ancient, but so-called time-worn reliquary keys, and they only give you access to League-exclusive uniques from leagues in the past, but they're not legacy versions or anything. They're just shiny and foily and uniques that you can't normally get in the game unless you have a certain modifier on the map.
So
I didn't realize that, actually.
Yeah, so what you're telling me is they're just shiny league-specific items. That's it. That's
shiny Reworld Squiver or Bestiary chest pieces or stuff like that. I think is like 150 in total that you can get, and those are not weighted against each other. Each of the 150 past league uniques, league exclusive uniques that you could get has the same chance of spawning when you open a chest. From what they've told us.
So you have basically you have 100 and 150 chance to get a headhunter. That's what you're telling me.
Exactly. So basically, they're going to be expensive because you can get a headhunter out of them. It's like not weighted, and personally in Legacy League, every single time I used a reliquary key, felt terrible.
Yeah.
Except for solo self-found.
So, okay, my experience with reliquary keys in the past. I got a Legacy Taste to Hate out of like 200 that I bought. Everything else was shit.
I think, so first off, the specific statement.
Actually, I got a few item quantities too. Those are pretty common, like compared to like getting a good unique.
When those weren't on people's filters at the beginning of the league.
Dude, I remember specifically, I was with Ziz. He was opening reliquary keys, and I was in his reliquaries. And I'm like, hey, you forgot this. And I linked them an item quantity gem. I remember specifically because I think someone clipped it. That was hilarious.
One
thing though about the reliquary keys, GGG has actually specifically retracted the statement that they made that that'll take like 1,000 hours to find one or something.
They said like 1,000 or 2,000 will be dropping in the entire league, or like that was something Chris posted on Reddit or something, and they quickly went back on that and said, okay, that was maybe a premature information.
Even so, I think I personally would be, and this may be a contentious opinion, but I think I personally would be actually fine with that. Because unlike old reliquary keys, which could give you a ridiculous amount of power if you got lucky by giving you 1,000 health counts or something, these will just give you a shiny item. Like, this is actually just something to show off. I'm a ridiculously wealthy person who puts way too much time into Path of Exile, so I have a shiny green headhunter. And that's the kind of thing. That's the kind of thing that I think would be fine if there's barely any of them at all in the game. Like, that's not something which your average player should even care about or think about. It shouldn't matter to anyone except the person who wants to invest 1,000x into an item or something.
It's kind of like alternate art, in standard. You can get an Alpha Cell, or you can spend all this fuck ton of money in an alternate art Alpha Cell. They're the same item, just one looks cooler.
Yeah, but when things become that rare, pricing them feels like becomes more abused than anything
It's
else.
true too. You kind of want to have a balance. You don't want them to be common. You don't want someone to be able to find like hundreds upon hundreds of keys. You don't really want someone to farm like, I don't know, man. It depends on the rarity. Maybe like, let's say an example would be like for every 8 to 10 exalts that you would find a key or something. Maybe like that.
That's a lot. A lot of people don't even find 8 to 10 exalts the entire league. But
Yeah, that's why.
Like when things are super rare, like for example, Eternals and Standard, there's certain people that, you know, price fix Eternals all the time and, you know, swoop them up whenever they hit the market at their fixed price. Same thing with reliquary keys. If it's super rare, people are gonna, you know, we don't necessarily have a non-abusive trade. So
Maybe make them 3 times as rare in exalt. Maybe that'd be good enough. I don't know.
I think the solution there, though, isn't to balance the rarity out of this, you know, basically shiny foil card in a pack of trading cards that they're giving you, but rather maybe to have a bit more regulation on trade, or to address the trade system in game to some degree at some point.
I think they really need to.
The problem, we're attacking a symptom here and sort of calling it the problem. That's not really the case. The rampant market manipulation on high value items like that is, if it's a problem, and you can definitely consider it not to be one, you know, you can say, well, that's just the free market at work. But if you consider it to be a problem, then the root of it isn't really rare items, because those will definitely exist in Path of Exile, you know, like the exact right rare bow with the perfect double corruption or something. Like, there will be markets that you can corner. You can't eliminate that. The problem lies in the tools people are using to corner said markets, and those tools not being policed.
Yeah. And I feel like trade does need a little bit of overhaul. That's like a whole nother podcast.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's a whole nother subject. But yes, it does need some sort of overhaul.
I would love to
Especially
see
with,
like some
like,
sort
how
of
they,
a currency
like,
auction
rare-
house or something like that, or like
Yeah.
anything that doesn't have rolls. Auction house, basically.
Well,
Like
I've always said that.
cards and currency and fragments.
Cards, yeah. Okay, I was gonna say that too. Damn it. Basically, just have an auction house for those type of things,
For
where people
goods.
want to buy them in bulk that don't want to like. I like selling maps. It's a good amount of currency to make. But how am I going to get maps if I can't map? Because everybody wants their maps now. If you tell them, hey, can you wait a few moments? I have no portals in my map. Oh, they're not just going to move on to the next guy, you know? So you literally have to sit in your hideout for like an hour or a couple hours if you want to sell maps. Why is that?
It's a bit off topic from the reliquary keys, though. And
Yeah.
No, I'm just
if
talking
you
about
wanna-
the trade in general, though. Like,
I don't know if
see
we
what I
want to go off on that tangent, because I'm sure everyone here and half of the chat could talk about it for about 3 hours.
Yeah.
Oh,
I just wanted to
definitely.
make a point, though. Like,
Oh,
auction
no.
house.
Perfectly legitimate point.
Yeah.
To shiny
For sure.
loot. I'm a fan.
I like shiny loot. I'm gonna probably collect a few pieces. I like
Maybe I
like
can do an all
the
shiny
weighted.
everything build.
Hey guys, I'm gonna be showing you my shiny. It's like a Pokemon. You're literally the Pokemon now. You're like a shiny version. Hey, you guys want to see my shiny Blade Flurry character? Oh, wow. How is it shiny? Oh, every piece of gear is shiny.
I think the equivalent that we have in game right now is uniques with an Elder Shaver background, where someone
Exactly.
scour chances like a Wind Ripper base that's Elder. What's Imperial Bow? An Elder Imperial Bow until getting an Elder Wind Ripper. Like, most of the player base doesn't give a shit about that. And there would be no outcry if they made it 3 times as rare to hit the chance correctly on an Elder base, you know, just arbitrarily. People wouldn't care. But for some reason, because reliquary keys are being added as an item, and because they're being announced, and because, you know, there's all this fanfare around them, people really care when they're incredibly rare, even though I think that's kind of just the point. Like, if they're common, then the fact that it's shiny loses all value, because there is no other difference. It's just shiny.
But still, like, you want people to, like, you want like the average player, like people who like, oh man, my goal this, like, I know a lot of people are like, my goal this league is to like get to yellow tier maps, maybe even kill Shaper. It would be my stretch goal. Like, I want those people to interact with that mechanic as well. You don't just want to add a mechanic where it's like, well, if you get super duper lucky, you happen to get this like mirror shard, like, and then you just sell it to somebody. That's how you interact
I can
with
see the argument going both ways, to be honest. It's like
Yeah.
they're both valid points. I understand your aspect and Octavian's aspect.
Yeah, I think it's a
Weighted,
difficult
though,
balance to strike.
Yeah, but since it's weighted and not like it's weighted between each one, they do have to make it a little rare because if it was common, people would just have headhunters, you know?
Reliquary shards.
No,
Make the drop rate 20 times as high and cut the key into 20 pieces.
Yeah,
Now everybody gets to interact with it.
you only get those shards from the harbingers in the delve.
Reliquary key shard.
But it's also like,
look
all
at
right,
it.
so even if it's pretty common, Headhunter is like what, like 55 exalts or something like that. Like, and if it's with 1 out of 150, that's going to be like the determining factor. It's still like a reliquary key is a third of an exalt, or give or take, right?
The shininess
maybe a
might
little
add
higher.
value, though.
Shininess might
And
add value.
there are other drops that are
Other
good
good
as well as
things.
the Headhunter, like Rigwalds or
Earl's fur or other things. Who
Yeah.
knows what's in there? But I'm sure there's like, they showed us a lot of the shiny stuff that's really nice, but I'm sure there's also like some absolute garbo things that are in there as well that nobody cares about.
Well, someone just
remember
linked
Reliquary
the
Keys
list.
1.0. It was like terrible.
On the wiki, there's a list of league-specific unique items, and it doesn't seem like there's more than 150. So the assumption would be we could get any and either of them.
I wonder if
Could get
you're
a
gonna
gull.
I have a question with the incursion one. Would you be able to get the upgraded version?
Yeah, those might be excluded. Like Harbinger specific ones as well, maybe. Where, you know, the things that drop in pieces might not drop. Or maybe they just drop the full item upgraded as well. Like fully upgraded. But there's like different functionality between the unupgraded and upgraded versions of things. Like maybe you do want the unupgraded coward's chains or whatever it is. The Vuln belt.
Yeah, same with the breach uniques, right? There's a big difference between some of those.
Maybe they drop. Maybe they also have a chance of dropping the vials and blessings to counteract that.
That could work.
Making the vials and the blessings profitable while making those uniques that it drops from not so much.
But blessings are different than vials because blessings you can just use on the spot. Vials you have to have a temple.
Yeah, to be fair, I think maybe incursion uniques are just going to be excluded from the drop table because it's the next league after incursion, and they might still want to have some time to work them into the game as a whole.
Well, figure out where exactly they fit. Make their way though. That seems reasonable. You know how before you had internal orbs on the old reliquaries? I know they can add currency stuff. Perhaps they might add blessings.
Well, looking at the divination card, the breach, which provides you a breach item, all of the items that come out of that are the non-upgraded versions. They give us any kind of design insight.
Yeah. So I'll assume all the breach items you get from the reliquary keys are going to be non-upgraded. But at the same time, like I said before, you had like item quantity and internal orbs possible to drop. They could just add a functionality of dropping blessings as well. Maybe not, because breach is in the core game. You might be able to just farm it yourself, but the possibility is there, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm thinking since blessings are obtainable, then that wouldn't really be strictly necessary.
Yeah.
I don't know. I in my opinion, I would be perfectly fine with reliquary keys if I never see one for the whole league, and only Joe Minmax who plays, MF for 30 hours a day, I was about to say, which, nobody can even achieve that.
Oh, I got a question real quick before you go into your point. Are keys only droppable in the depth?
No, reliquary keys are just being added as a droppable item, I believe. In your travels across Rayclast, you may very rarely discover a Time-Worn reliquary key. This key will open a portal to the Time-Worn reliquary. So it seems like it's just a very rare drop.
So yeah, it's a drop. Okay. So that gives MFing a little bit of incentive if they wanted to Like if someone just wanted to farm shiny stuff, you know, they might make
If
an
they're
MF character.
implemented like they were in Legacy League, they may count as a currency, because I recall people being able to get them as currency drops from Arcanist boxes.
Yep, that's where I got most of mine.
I was just thinking it would be funny if you could have gotten them from Emperor's Luck.
I'm sorry, I think you cut off there at the end.
Oh, from Emperor's Luck, the 5 currency card set. That would have been funny. You could get 5 keys at once.
Stack.
Maybe you can try lowering your threshold a little, Cat. You seem to cut off a good amount sometimes.
Only for you guys. Good that you draw my attention to it, because I thought sometimes you ignored me.
There he goes.
Yeah.
It cuts off.
Yeah, there he goes again.
Yeah, it's a Discord specific thing, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me just adjust my sensitivity manually. I could have also done push to talk. There we go. So what was I saying? Yeah. Would have been funny if you could have gotten them from Emperor's Luck. But obviously, that's not a thing. And rightfully so. But yeah, Is there anything in particular that you guys look forward to, like in terms of what item you can get from there, like that enables a build that you weren't able to play for a long time? Or I guess last leagues we all had pretty good access to past league uniques, except for a few exceptions.
No, nothing in particular really stands out to me.
Except for the Headhunter.
Not even that. I'm not even sure that Headhunter is really something I'm going to go for. Like this past league, I was like, I didn't use my Headhunter at all Uber Elder farming. Like it was mostly a meme thing. I had like skin transferred it onto a Stygian. People were like, how the heck did you get an Abyss Socket on a Headhunter? Is that a new corruption? I'm like, no, just don't use this for Uber Elder farming. So I didn't even go for one this league. And I'm not even sure if it's going to be good in the Delve at all. So I don't know if I want to get a Headhunter again. Like, why bother? Meh.
Yeah, it really depends on whether or not how slow how fast you can go, right? Because you want to keep those Headhunter buffs, but if you can't do that efficiently in the Delve, then Headhunter becomes an item that you most only want for MF, because you want to speed up Magic Find in that aspect.
Yeah, I think the question will become what the density in the Delve is like, and in particular density of rare monsters. One of the reasons why Headhunter is so insane in mapping is because you can force tons of mobs into your maps through prophecies and sextants and rolling high pack size and that sort of thing. And you don't have that sort of control. Shroud walking into the darkness would be scary.
Good point, Jake, with a lot of ease.
It's
like, I'm crushing this. Whoop. Bye-bye.
No Headhunter in Delve, confirmed.
Yep. Yeah, no Headhunter in Delve. Sorry. Or like you had like, oh no, I picked up Shroudwalker. Take off the belt, put the belt back on. Shenanigans.
But Soul Eater is still insane. And one of the main reasons why Headhunter is so strong is you want Soul Eater. So maybe we'll see Soul Thirst used.
Yeah.
Which is a belt people commonly forget about. Gives you Soul Eater during a flask effect, but if you pop another flask, you lose all your souls. So people usually get a mana flask, self-degen mana through Mind Over Matter RF, and keep up that one single mana flask. And they go for a mana flask because it's the longest duration flask in the game. You can keep it up for like 30 seconds or so.
Sanctified, right?
And
I think so.
You either do spells, or you use Soul Taker to be able to attack without having any mana, right?
Yes. Or since you're using Mind Over Matter RF, you could potentially just scale the RF to be your damage source and just run along and you get passive damage.
You could also.
That's a little hard to do, though.
You can also
we could Flicker Strike, right?
No. What were you saying, Ecktor?
You could just get the amulet that was introduced in Incursion as well against the Soul Eater, right?
If you can. If Incursion uniques are part of the reliquary, and if you can find someone who's selling a shiny Xerphes, if reliquary keys are going to be as rare as people are fearing, and Xerphes is going to be as expensive or anywhere near as expensive as it was this league.
10 mirrors.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. That is a combination of insane rarity that would just be ridiculous. There'd be like one, probably, if that even is possible.
Take it into standard and be like, I'll take all the alt art, please.
It's like, oh hey, you can get Soul Eater, just spend 10 mirrors. Who needs that Hunter?
Soul Thirst
Most
is
likely what
probably
happened
a
is
little
somebody would
cheaper.
vendor that shit.
Soul Thirst at what, chaos is probably a little cheaper to get.
Mm-hmm.
I might do that now. The Soul Thirst delving build could be fun. I don't think it would do very well into like deeper delves, because once you get to the point where it's difficult to kill that first monster, you're gonna not snowball, and then it's gonna feel bad.
Yeah, it seems like the scaling of Righteous Fire is far from infinite.
Oh yeah, for sure. But you can use like cast on crit stuff with like Cosprees as your main hand or something, and get some spells going that way. But again, not infinite scaling, and it would be really good for like running if there's a particularly profitable breakpoint for delves. Like they start to get a good quantity modifier around floor 35, but it's still not that hard to do. And then you can run those super fast. And then instead of T3 burial chambers, it's T35 delves that everybody's running stupid fast. Maybe.
Zoom.
Probably not. Because
It'd be an interesting league, though. That's for sure.
There's so much potential here. There's so much potential.
Potential
and there's also
for
vice versa. Potential for either way, either potential for greatness or potential for failure.
Yeah.
I mean, my motto has always been, I trust in Chris Wilson. And as long as Chris Wilson's calling the shots at grinding your games, I think things are going to turn out good. And I think people are like, oh, 10 cent. But like, I feel like part of the reason why that whole 10 cent happened is because Chris was spending a lot of time like being more of a CEO as opposed to being like a game developer. And this gives him a lot of the opportunity to kind of like get back into the game developer role. And so I'm super happy about that. Like, I think that they've shown a lot of ability to take feedback from like us and from their their clients pretty much, and if something really sucks, they don't like force it down our throats. Like, we don't have bestiary right now in core. Like, I really thought 100% bestiary was going core. There was a big uproar about it, and it disappeared.
Talismans too.
Yeah, talismans too.
I think Igor.
And so like, if we really hate it and it really sucks and it like is ruining the game or the league or the community even, they're gonna roll it right back out. Be like, that was a great 3 weeks or 3 months, like, and we're doing something else now. We'll maybe revisit that some other time in the future. But I have faith.
I think Igor actually has a really good point that I've not seen brought up before, that enemy evasion will scale with monster level. Which is why in like Path of Building, if you forget to move your character level up at the top little checkbox, then it'll say your hit chance is 100%. And you'll feel real happy about your build until you go and put in level 90 and your hit chance is 72. So like builds that actually need to care about accuracy could be a little screwed if monster level continues to scale upwards.
So you're saying champion will be the champion?
Champion will be good. Yes. Champion will continue to be good. And like Kazade. And maybe we see Ephagon used by some people.
What?
Ephagon, the upgraded version of Ignomon. Enemies that are blinded can't evade. It's actually pretty good as Scion, because Sub-Ascendancy Saboteur is good even for attack builds that use AoE, because you get 30% increased AoE and then 10% pen and blind on hit. So like a Sub-Ascendancy node, that means penetration, 30% AoE, and you can't miss. It's actually pretty worth it, even if you don't get the Trapper Mine stuff.
I mean,
I feel like blinding is so
champion,
easy.
So yeah.
Please.
Champion, so
you can get blind on hit abyssal jewels, but those rolls don't go particularly high. If you stack a few of them, it can be enough for Ephagon as well, though. So yeah, you could use that.
You could just use a Stibnite Flask.
But what if you want to play a ranged build?
Get up in point blank.
Yeah, no, of course, if you want to play a ranged build. I just recently, or like my last character, with which I died on the Ascendant ladder, was a BV, and because I didn't get a good Shaper stat stick, I was basically stuck with using the Dark Seer, this beyond unique item that gives you +1 life per level or something like that, and it has 7% straight up no roll. I just always 7% chance to blind on hit, and that seemed to be more than enough to blind everything around me because BV has such a rapid hit rate.
Just throw your flask. Well, maybe if you just have enough shiny stuff on, you'll just blind all the enemies anyways.
But yeah, just, you know, bullshitting your way around the accuracy mechanic will possibly be even more popular, like it needs to be.
Mhm.
Accuracy's not a very good
It's
mechanic.
terrible. Especially
Yeah.
like when you consider how it works with crit, where you get double negative dipped with accuracy. Because most people don't realize, like, if you want to crit, first you have to hit. And then when you roll your crit, you also roll to hit with the crit again. So you get double dipped on accuracy. And
Crit
so if you,
confirmation.
if you miss the second like crit hit roll, like you just get a regular hit all of a sudden. And so it's like accuracy is actually really important. Oh god.
Yeah, I understand it's balanced. You know, if it was no accuracy, crit would just be like everywhere. You know, you wouldn't need like RT or anything like that. But at the same time, accuracy is such a bad mechanic. It's horrible.
It just feels bad to get.
My biggest issue with it is that it's so poorly communicated to players. Like, new players, despite the fact that accuracy is on gear and can roll on weapons and stuff, I've come across a lot of new players who just didn't even know like it existed, or were very unfamiliar with how it actually worked. They see the word in a few places on their passive tree and on gear, and they don't really delve into it too much further and try and figure out how it works, and then they don't understand why they're just not doing damage sometimes. Like, every third hit just doesn't do anything, and that has like no feedback. There's no like little text box that pops up saying miss or something along those lines. It's just,
Actually,
I
that'd be pretty good,
sundered
but
and nothing exploded. Am I
pretty
bugged?
good actually.
don't the
If you just
secondary
put
explosions? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, like you said on the subject of the miss keyword, if they put that, it make more sense for new players to be like, oh, I don't have enough accuracy, huh?
But then you're
You
playing in the
damn.
end game in super segmented maps as Tornado Shot with, 500 enemies on the screen. And even if you have 95% hit chance, having miss pop up over 5% of your hits probably means miss is on the screen 100 times.
Oh god, yeah.
So, like, it makes sense early on, maybe as a toggleable thing, you could have that.
It would be so terrible. And like, but even if that was there, like, yeah, the game would have to calculate where that miss is being generated to put the text there, and oh god, that would be a nightmare. It's not something that I think is in the engine right now, so that like it would be real interesting. Missing attacks on Hillock, yeah. Missing attacks on the first zombie.
Rip efficiency. Oh, you're trying to be the first one to get into
6
town?
attack zombie. God no.
Feels so good to get a lucky crit with Shadow with a 100% chance to poison with the Viper Strike early on, and you see Hillock's HP just melt down. But yeah, anyway, like, we've been going quite strongly for 2.5 hours, so I'd like to cover the last discussion points before we wrap things up, because I also don't want to occupy too much of your guys' time in the face of us all still partaking in the ongoing flashback incursion race in one way or another, except for our little trader down there.
No, man,
Hi,
it's
I
totally
have
fine.
I have time. Time is all I have.
If you want to play different games, there's never anything wrong with that, and I definitely never give people a hard time. Like, if you like, I didn't play the last flashback almost at all, and so like going up to the next league, if you need to take time off, that's totally understandable. It's like, it's okay to be excited about it and like be like, you know what, I kind of conserve my Path of Exile energy for the next league. Like, I would never give anybody a hard time for that. So Ecktor's, you do you, man.
Yeah, that's
I
exactly
agree
it.
100%. I mean, you have, first of all, it's in the word, it's gaming, right? You're playing not because you feel like you have to play a certain game, but you're playing in order to have fun. And the same way, I feel like a stream is also way better and way more enjoyable to watch if the broadcaster actually is into what he's doing and if he actually feels it and is, euphoric, enthusiastic, energetic about what he's doing. And if Path of Exile is just not giving you that right now because, well, we basically got the same flashback race as previously, just with a different underlying league modifier, and this time it's 25 days again. If it was a shorter race, I also think I would have gone harder, but yeah, it's really all about having fun. So no hate there. It was just a little side jab.
Yeah. So make sure you guys check me out at twitch.tv/Ecktor. I'm not playing PoE.
Yeah, we're doing that part in a bit, but what I quickly wanted to talk about is there's this section with the new skills, and I wanted to know whether you guys had recognized anything there, because we get only of the 10 new and revamped skills, we only get 3 revealed so far, which have been talked about in detail, I think, by other people already. But what I personally found standing out is this in the bottom right here, which basically looks exactly like the current Ancestor Warchief gem.
Yes, can I talk about that? I've played Warchief so much. Like every league until this league, I've always started a character as Warchief. My go-to lab farmer was Warchief. So I'm so excited for this, because the problem with Warchief on this league is that you needed speed. And Warchief is just not going to cut it, to be honest, which is why I didn't play this league. But Warchief has been one of my babies. It's one of my favorite builds. I played it so much. I've like delved into the numbers, and obviously right now I think if you're going non-crit with Face Breakers, Champion is the best one. If you're going crit, Champion is still the best one if you're going Face Breakers. And I think Chieftain is actually pretty good if you go conversion on like a weapon, like Dirge or something like that. But yes, it's got me pretty excited. I don't think it's going to be a rework. I think it's going to be just a Vol Ancestor Warchief skill. I'm not sure how they're going to do it, because we have no information on that, but I'm excited.
So all you're saying is they're just going to be a Vol Ancestor Warchief and nothing else?
I believe so, because Ancestor Warchief is not a bad skill. It's pretty good mechanic as it is. It's got good damage.
You're going to pick up the totem and turn it into a cannon. You're going to shoot the Warchief at people.
Exactly, and then it has wheels under the totem, so it actually moves with you.
It's going to be launched, and it's going to be like hammering everyone.
Someone in my chat yesterday was just incredibly confident, and I more power to him. I hope they're right, but they were incredibly confident that it was going to be Mirage Archer, but a Warchief.
Mirage Warchief.
Basically, a Warchief you strap to your backpack and run around with, and it hits things as you go, which would be cool. And there's already the tech for that in the game, so maybe I can see why they would lead to that assumption, but I don't think we can be that sure of it.
But that makes sense. That would be low effort. Like GGG likes to reuse content and to make things easy, right? So they can give us more content rather than stuff that they had to put a lot of work in, but that no one appreciates. And that would just basically take you have a Val Warchief now, and it would take the normal Warchief ghost that appears over the totem, and that would just appear over your character for a certain amount of duration. That would be really cool if that was the case. I like that idea.
So what you're telling me, I can cosplay as Haku?
Yeah, sure.
If that's how you want to look at it.
Oh man, I'd love to do it.
You'll have to get out of your shirt though.
Vol Earthquake, Vol Warchief build. You run around stomping the ground with a dude in your back, punching anyone who doesn't get stomped to death. You just like a freight train of fists and feet. That would be fun.
Sounds like a good idea for a movie. A train of fists and fury. That could be the title or something. Also, what about an aura of totems? They just surround you. Kind of like how those people that have hideouts, when they have those guys like looking at you when you go into a hideout. I don't know if you guys ever seen this. They just have like 20 guys like standing around just looking at you. What happens if they do that with totems?
So you'd have like a Val Warchief where you get 20 Warchiefs in a set circle around you that follow you. I think that would be a little bit strong.
Yeah, it would be, but it's an interesting thought.
Okay. And then the other one of these gems that I wanted to pick up on, let me enhance here. Enhance. So we got this one. That someone speculated on the Reddit that this one looks like the Righteous Fire gem, because it has you have the base gem, like the stone actually itself, and then a ring around it. And it's very similar to the Righteous Fire, only it doesn't look like flames, but it looks more like corners. And what they were speculating was that this would be the Righteous Lightning skill.
It's got a sin symbol on it.
Yeah, that's the one thing that leads me to believe that it can't be Righteous Lightning because it has this immortality symbol or whatever it is.
There is unrighteous fire that enemies use.
Right.
I don't know the stats on the skill, but Piety's Miscreations, some of those will use a skill called Unrighteous Fire. When you're standing near them, you know that little like bloody roiling ball above your head that pops
Yeah.
up?
But I always thought
that's
that
the
was just the
Unrighteous Fire.
monsters version of Righteous Fire because it makes sense that monsters don't use Righteous Fire because they're not righteous, they're monsters.
Yeah.
Right?
And also you don't want the monsters killing themselves when they spawn.
Exactly, because of the detail.
But like maybe there will be an actual gem form of it. It might not do what the monsters do, but it might, they might just be lifting that name and making a concept around it. That would be cool. I don't know. This is all purely very much speculation.
Yeah, I mean, that's speculation in its purest form, looking at unannounced gems that have been grayed out and trying to find out what skills we're gonna get.
Can also just be light radius gem. Literally just gives you light radius. Gives you a skill with light radius.
Val light radius. Val flare. Yeah.
As far as the released gems, or the gems they've mentioned, I'm really excited to see how Smite works, because the footage that we saw of what is presumably Smite, the like sort of chunky lightning explosions, looked really fun. And then on the topic of Dominating Blow, I think we have to see the stats on the minions before we can really say anything about whether it's good or not. Because if I recall correctly, the gem didn't list like the stats of the minions, like what skills they use, what their base health might be at certain levels. Like without that information, it could just be garbage, or
it's
it could
it's
be
basically a true minion skill.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell you anything.
The Path of Exile way.
Oh.
Yeah, you just gotta find out on your own. So let's talk about Toxic Rain.
Toxic Rain? Oh, you want to talk about Toxic Rain? I thought that would be pretty cool to run on an occultist, like some occultist bow character with maybe even a Darkscorn or something like that. Although Darkscorn is like a poor choice in terms of DPS, but definitely occultist for that reduced chaos damage, reduced chaos resist on enemies. But the point is, or like the problem I see with that, even though I wanted to league start with it, it wouldn't do well in delves, I think, because of the problems that we talked about earlier with damage over time and the way it scales.
I feel like we said that damage over time might be really OP, since the way like typically poison hasn't been strong because you want to like one-shot things.
Yeah, poison, but I meant degen skills. But yeah, you're right. This could poison actually, because it's a rain, right? It's projectiles that actually hit, so you could use it in conjunction with poison.
Yeah, so it's like physical and half chaos, and so like you could probably make it full chaos somehow, some way. But could be interesting. I think
one of the most powerful things about it may end up being the utility that it has. It can apply up to a 60% slow, and you stack that with like maybe a temp chains aura or some way of chilling or some way of hindering.
Fast when damage taken vortex.
Yeah, that as well. And I mean, you can just get maim with Tomb Fist and a Searching Eye Jewel. Like that's incredibly easy. And then you get the it's 10% slow for each spore pod, so let's say like a 30% slow on average there. And what's maim? I don't know off the top of my head how much maim slows something.
Let's say 10%, but yeah.
Look it up. 30%. So that's
wow.
Let's say like an average of 60% reduced move speed there, just from the maim and the toxic shot, and it's like up to 90% if toxic shot is fully stacked. But I think there's a cap on slows now, ever since the days of Whispering Ice temp chains, when people would literally just stop enemy animation speed. But yeah.
Yes, that was like hardcore heaven. I remember that. You would have like a support character just slowing down and stuff.
You can probably very easily reach slowing cap without too much investment. Like Tomb Fist and Toxic Rain right there. You're gonna hit slow cap sometimes on some enemies. If you want to be real safe about it, work a temp chains Blasphemy in. That's all the investment you need, and now most enemies are going to be at maximum like reduced animation speed.
Temp Chain's Blasphemy is really good because that would also increase the duration of the other slowing effects. Or like reduce, like, how you call that? Extend the duration, because the duration expires slower.
Yeah. So like even if the damage isn't amazing, if the damage is passable enough that you can push content with it at an okay rate, the sheer survivability of slowing everything down on the screen to the absolute slowest crawl that it can move at could be enough to make Toxic Rain a neat little niche skill that people use for that reason.
Could also be
think that's
used as a support skill too, right? In that way, in that sense, in like party play.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if you're investing that much into slowing things as a support player, you might want to use like Blight and Volblight. Doesn't have as much reach though, but you get like the guaranteed hinder out of that, and then you can use the Temp Chain Zora, and Volblight has really larger range.
How long is the hinder duration on Blight these days? I thought it was really, really short only.
Oh yeah,
it's
you're right.
pretty
It is
short.
fairly short. You could get like hinder on hit jewels and then go with like a rapidly hitting spell with like Whispering Ice. You could do Whispering Ice, hinder on hit jewels, and like some sort of temp chains, like temp chains on hit from Dodger's gloves too. And then good old fashioned Whispering Ice chill. But yeah,
But then,
no, I think
then
the
you'd be
most-
limited to applying EE just for cold with the Whispering Ice or fire in case of conversion. But with the if you were talking about it in terms of a pure support skill, the Toxic Rain technically has the potential to be, you know, applying EE for any element that you want, on top
Sure.
of slowing and applying a curse on hit curse.
Yeah, that could be pretty solid. And the coverage seems good from the footage that we've seen. So maybe some sort of Toxic Rain, max slow, curse on hit support could happen, could exist.
Yeah, Whispering Ice in group though. Pretty.
Yeah.
How to crash your friends in one simple step.
Hey, there's improvements to the graphics engine. They said that up here very explicitly. Graphics engine improvements and more. So we can only hope
Okay.
that Whispering Ice will be party viable.
So let me ask you this: there's a difference between improvements and completely gutting your graphics. Okay, so no matter how many improvements they make, it's not gonna stop Whispering Eyes from just destroying your system.
Yeah. And I guess what?
Is that my connection? Or is the whole cutting out?
I think it might be mine. I don't know. Something is. Holy shit.
Mine? I'm hearing everyone as a robot.
Holy crap. Change the Discord server. Yeah, everybody's frozen right now. Wow. I've never had something like that. How can you change the Discord server though? I think it will just come back. Connections.
Yeah, I think the Discord is dying.
That's impressive. Well, apparently Discord is dying, guys. Let's see. What a nice day. Let's see. How can we do this? Hide personal information. Can we change the Discord server?
Alright. It's better now?
You coming back?
You don't.
Yeah. Just restarted and it works now.
You no longer sound like you're being assimilated.
Exactly.
Okay. And Don is also back, and everyone is back. Wow, amazing. That was just the hard cap on the Discord call duration.
Beep boop.
I could just imagine Discord saying like, "You've been in this call for about 2.5 hours. We will now up at." Where was I going with this? Yeah.
Please confirm you are not a robot.
Yeah.
Single individuals were taking up entire servers with their
Entire servers worth
the
of
Discord
conversations.
conversations.
Talking about video games. Seems like
Octavian!
There's one more question I would want to ask, and that's is there, and I know that's again purely speculative nature, but do you think that we'll actually see some proper nerfs or changes in terms of balance changes? Because obviously the builds that are available right now in Path of Exile are all very different in regards to how well they would be able to perform in infinitely scaling content. Like some things would perform way better and some things don't stand a chance.
Yes, is the very short answer. If you want more detail, I think LE hit needs to be changed. I think the damage on that gem is a little too accessible at the moment. And maybe the whole conversion mechanic is just a mistake and needs to be rethought. And what else? I would like to see buffs to some of the more underused skill gems. I think the very nature of Delve is going to be a buff to a lot of things, though, because it's very different content than we've had in the past. So maybe they don't touch a lot of skills. They just nerf the most obvious offenders and buff the most obvious, lackluster skills, and then kind of let the league determine to some degree what's problematic by testing these skills with the player base up against content the likes of which they've never been pushed against before.
Yeah, should definitely be interesting. Depending on how they scale the monster health, I feel like, or like the monster difficulty, if they're scaling like monster health significantly, things like Abyssal Cry and all of the like gladiator explosions and things of that nature gonna need to be addressed. Otherwise, it's gonna be like, oh, you're not using double obliteration. Why not?
What about Blade Vortex?
Blade Vortex is fine. Blade Vortex is like right now just the best way for people to apply a spell that gets you to cascade with what you call it, dumb chest.
Impulses.
Yeah, impulses. Impulses, totally balanced heart.
Yeah, so
three
you're
of them.
saying that all of Blade Vortex's OP power lies in its synergy with Impulsors, and you'd say that Blade Vortex is in a good spot and doesn't need a nerf. Do I get you right there?
Like Blade Vortex in general is like okay. Like it's like the primary way I see people using Blade Vortex right now. Like it's really more Impulse that's causing a lot of the like wow.
I feel it's. I can see your point, but I also feel Blade Vortex might be a bit too good by itself anyway. Especially like in an SSF environment, everybody just plays Blade Vortex.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, after I died with my Blade Vortex, I felt really hard to justify to reroll anything other than Blade Vortex and maybe Elemental Hit because I had the Threshold Jewel. But like anything but Blade Vortex seems stupid for me. I don't know. Blade Vortex is just so good.
I think Blade Vortex is definitely too strong. I have to disagree. I think Impulses is a good power step for it, but I feel Blade Vortex is also just really strong.
Oh, Blade Vortex is the best right now, so you know.
And there's like one more skill that I think I wanted to talk about. Oh, I guess traps in general. What do you think about them? I think they're fine because they're inherently slow in mapping.
I feel like the new trap gems they added, the only one I see people use is the Lightning Spire, and like the other ones are kind of eh.
Flamethrower trap's pretty okay. I used it as a secondary like single target setup in my fire trap build, and like it made a significant difference. It could shred through like Uber Elder portals eventually by itself if the full duration was allowed to complete. It's just smaller bosses or bosses that move around a lot. It becomes really difficult to use, but Lightning Spire has a similar effect. It's kind of designed into the skill. It didn't see as much play this league, but I think Fire Trap actually needs a nerf as well. It has 200% scaling, 200% effectiveness of added damage, which like the other spell in the game that has that is Molten Shell, which is a lot less repeatable and easy to use.
Or Frostbomb, right?
Or Frostbomb, yes, actually. Frostbomb as well. Which is a lot less repeatable and easy to use.
Yeah, but Frostbomb, I definitely find it deserves a nerf, especially during the early levels. It's way too easy with Frostbomb to one-shot packs, even if you're just using Frostbomb on a 2-link. It's definitely been dominating the racing meta.
I guess
don't
that
really
depends
think
on
that they care about the racing meta.
yeah, I guess that
Yeah.
depends on your perspective then, because like if we're talking about the game from the dev point of view, that is a small niche that maybe they could address, but if addressing that is problematic for like any larger part of the game, I don't think it'll ever happen. So if a Frostbomb nerf has an indirect onwards effect towards Frostbomb's usages later on, and I don't think it will ever happen. Though in that specific case, probably not. Like people don't use Frostbomb in the end game because its base damage is good, even though that is the case. Its base damage is
Also,
very
it'd be
good.
like Dead and Doom, and everybody uses Leap Slam all the time. We need to nerf Leap Slam.
Well, movement skills are a completely different topic, and I mean that there's just a different power they provide, right?
Oh, yeah.
Leap Slam's really neat, actually. This is very much a tangent, but Leap Slam has the same travel time in the air regardless of how far you leap with it, and that travel time is determined by your attack speed, and its targeting range is a square around your character. So that means if you jump to one of the corners of the square traveling diagonally, you will actually travel slightly further than if you jumped to the farthest edge in a straight line. So if you travel diagonally upwards or diagonally up and to the left or diagonally down, you'll actually go a little bit faster. Same thing is true
Yes.
of Flame Dash.
Yeah,
But
I've
only
noticed that
if
when I
you're
do.
actually meaning to go that direction, because like in racing, it's like, okay, if you get a little bit farther diagonally, great. But if you're actually going out of your way,
It's only useful when you need to go that way, but you can specifically do that when you need to go that way.
Or in many instances, you just have to stick to the top right anyway, right? At least in the
Yeah.
first part of the game.
You see that prominent in Uber Lab when you're using Leap Slam? You can use it to cut corners and save yourself like a good second. Which, if you're pushing for the ladder, can be very good. You can cut seconds off each Leap Slam.
But that probably doesn't need to be nerfed. No, Catmaster, that doesn't need to be nerfed. As far as the original discussion, which was what might need to be nerfed going into next league, I think
No, you're right.
keep
It's a fair point.
math behind Leap Slam jumping at corners. That's probably fine.
So what do you guys think about the cheaper stat sticks?
Why? Please don't. Why? Why do they happen? I still have no idea why the Fizz's extra mods are not exclusive to each other. I have no
I have to
goddamn
agree.
clue.
I have to agree. I don't know why they have so many able to be crafted. It's ridiculous. It's literally killed the two-handed meta when they introduced.
If you look at the opportunity cost of any other Fizz's extra effect in the game, it's just absurd when you compare it to a stat stick. Look at Hatred, or look at the Fizz's extra you get from Added Fire, or the Fizz's extra you get from Taste of Hate. Like, you get one roll, it takes up the whole slot, takes up the whole support gem, takes up 50% of your mana, and you get one physical as extra effect. Or stat sticks, which give you 90% Fizz's extra for one weapon slot.
Yeah, they're not that hard to
And
craft.
crit multi. That's a really good one as well. And you can say, well, it's balanced by rarity. It's really hard to make a good stat stick. But even the shitty stat stick that you make that has 2 Fizz's extra mods and crafted crit multi, which that doesn't take that much effort to make, is going to outperform Hatred, which is half your mana. Obviously, we're kind of comparing apples and oranges there, but there's still some legitimacy to comparing the opportunity cost and space that takes up in your build and what it denies you. Like, what does that deny you in your Blade Flurry offhand stat sticking build? You don't get to use a shield. You lose block chance. You lose life, maybe some max res or something if you're going with a Shaper Touch shield. Whereas 50% mana, you lose another potential aura. You lose, you could have max res there if you wanted to, or you could have like some flat damage or something. And what you're gaining is nowhere near as powerful as what you gain from giving up the offhand. It's just the weighting on Fizz's extra in every other place in the game simply does not align with how it's prioritized in the game on stat sticks. It does numerically, it doesn't make any sense to me.
The moment I saw stat sticks were introduced in the game, that is the moment I knew I didn't like that stat stick. Like, why can't you just have one mod on it and that's it? Like, make it restrictive. Added damage to spells is restrictive. Why can't they do that with stat sticks?
Yeah, good point. You can't get flat cold and flat lightning at the same time. Why can I get physical as extra cold and lightning and fire and chaos? all on the same stat stick.
Chaos since it's a suffix and not a prefix, it makes crafting it a little harder in some sense. Debatable, but like, yeah, all the other ones should be restricted.
Good point. There's no real reason to prefixes
it a
excluding
prefix?
suffixes.
No, there's a suffix one, isn't there? Demigod?
As random.
Yeah, as random. Okay, sorry. Yeah, that's the one I meant.
Random element is suffix. Ah, okay.
Yeah, I think the Fizz or the Ellie as chaos one like generally kind of gets overlooked, but once you have like a really good stat stick, the Ellie as chaos becomes like insane. So if you have 2 prefix, random, and then you throw in the chaos, it's like, oh my gosh, so much chaos damage rolling in.
Yeah, there's no other source of damage in the game really that compares. Aside, like if we want to even take a step further back and compare the Fizz's extra effect from a stat stick to other sources of damage in the game in general, like it's comparable to getting another 2 links or maybe even 3. The amount of extra damage you're getting. It's comparable to what a moderate amount of stacks on an Indigon will give you. Like that's what we're talking about out of your offhands, your weapon here. And that kind of power can in some places be balanced by rarity. Like Headhunter will give you that much power in terms of clear and in terms of damage and that kind of thing in a lot of situations. But Headhunter is like the crowning jewel to your build that is 70x or whatever. And these stat sticks, you can get enough power for it to be worth the slot with like sub 100 chaos investment in crafting very easily. Like a few, maybe 1,000 alts and a few dozen regals, and you have a stat stick that will outperform any other item in that slot that you could have gotten with the same budget.
I mean, so I've been using the same stat stick the entire league on my champion. It's got 38% Fizz as extra and multi on it. That's it. Yep. And it's providing two of the 7 million DPS of the build.
Seems balanced.
Hey,
I'd be happy with
on the first
whole
week.
mod being removed, to be honest.
Or nerfed into the ground to the point where it's actually reasonable, where it actually compares to other items. I have just had a flashback to Breach League when one of my friends played Reef in softcore, and that was the time where Ziggy D popularized this Southpaw Reef build, where you'd use the Unholy Might Scepter. I forgot the name, but
Death's Hand.
Death's Hand, thank you.
He did that in Warbands.
And before you use Death's Hand, which was a 5x item around that time, you'd use Relentless Fury, which is an axe that literally gives you nothing but Culling Strike and Rampage on Culling Strike. And that was considered a good stat stick, good enough to wear until you get Death's Hand, which by today's standard, Death's Hand is probably obsolete completely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I've like used it if I got one to drop in Solo Self-Found and I didn't have a better option. That's about it.
It's like how building up. I'd use it if I find one in Solo Self-Found if I don't have anything better.
Yeah, I mean, no, actually, I'm playing Blade Vortex Guardian right now. And I used a Death Hand for like 4 levels, and then I got a Shaper Scepter to drop and crafted on that, and it rolled 1 Fizz's extra mod, and it's better.
Anything. Shaper anything. Like claw,
yeah, I could use a
dagger,
Shaper.
axe,
Shaper freaking axe.
mace.
Yeah. I'm actually hoping for a mace so I can get the enemies explode on death effect, as well as Fizz's extra.
Stat sticks, man.
I have a mace, but it has too much strength requirement. It has 212 strength requirement that I'm never going to get in my Blade Vortex build, or was never going to get. Well, I could have picked stat point, I guess, but in the end I decided to not craft it and to wait for a scepter or a dagger, and I never got a scepter or dagger, so I started spamming all my essences into a shitty one-hand sword. It wasn't even a foil, it was just a normal sword, like a 6-slot inventory slot item. And I was like, well, if it gets a double damage or 2 together with my attack speed essence or my crit essence or something like that, it's good enough. But I never got it.
But yeah, they're super strong, maybe too strong, but I think it's good that they are creating items that are rare items that are interesting as opposed to uniques. I feel like GGG's always try to push like rares as being kind of the end game chase items, as opposed to being like, oh well, you found the perfect like Death's Hand or something like that. Like, so I think it's good that they have these awesome rare items. Maybe it should be like harder to craft these insane GGG like crazy prefix suffix type of setups, but overall I think it's better than having uniques in those slots. I do think the fact that like the way that dual wielding works, like even if you're like not technically dual wielding, is a little bit interesting and doesn't necessarily make sense to new players, but yeah, Shaper's at 6, pretty ridiculous.
I
Yeah.
agree. And I think with the tone, we're wanting to wrap up the discussion, but I'm going to berate this one point further and say that if you just look one gear slot over slightly from your offhand, just go over a little bit to the left and up, and you look at that amulet slot for like Fizz's extra effects and for crit multi and that sort of thing, you can still find those crazy endgame rare amulets posted now and again on Reddit that people are, really proud of, that have a Fizz gained as extra effect and really good crit multi, and maybe also quant or like XP gained, I think, is a stat you can get there as well. You can get these really crazy things, and they're on a much more reasonable power level earlier in the game. Whereas before you get to that crazy endgame item, Scepter's like stat sticks are still outperforming anything else in that slot with very minimal investment. Like, I'm not saying I don't want something incredibly overpowered if you invest enough into it. That is kind of the point of an ARPG genre, is that you eventually become a god king amongst men who crushes armies beneath his feet. But I just don't want that to be easy.
Oh yeah, I mean I have like a pretty insane necklace, but it's giving me like half the damage of my pretty bad stat stick.
Yeah, that's the point I'm getting at. Like, I want that to be equalized a little bit, where like it's not just all about the stat stick, and you have to pay as much attention to each gear slot. But I will stop berating this.
No, that's a very, very fair point. Like, power is good and should be in the game, but it should not be generally very easy to achieve, and it should not be polarized or centered around one gear slot or two, but you should be able to get sort of equal power levels from all gear slots.
Yeah, it's just too accessible on the scepters. Like, if you look at an amulet to get something similar to the scepters,
tell that to
really,
the people
really
who
hard.
drop scepters in SSF. I didn't get a scepter all flashback. I'm salty.
Oh, that's
I
just
can
to
give you
you
my
though,
spare.
Kat. Not everyone else.
I have so many.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I fucked. I messed up a little bit with my Shaper and Elder spawn position, and they've been focusing mostly on the top right of the atlas, where most of the maps that I run are somewhere else.
Just knock them off then, and then respawn them somewhere else.
Yep.
Yeah, but in
I
order
can give
to
you
do
my
that,
old hand-me-down stat stick. It looks a little bit like a Death's Hand, but I promise it's a real Shaper stat stick.
I appreciate that.
It's got the
The
skin,
true solo
skin
self-found
transfer.
spirit.
Skin transfer, right? I get you.
Well, so I consider this a really big success. We had a lot of fun talking about all this. I think we're all out of energy, or like, well, we're all pretty enthused about the upcoming league, and we probably could keep on talking, but at this point everything is speculation that we haven't talked about. And I want to, first of all, before I forget, that's the most important thing for me. I want to give a big up to Ecktor, Octavian, and DonTheCrown. Thank you guys for being here. That's the most important thing, guys. If you enjoyed this Faded Connections podcast, please, the least you can do is go to these broadcasters. If you're not following them already, follow them.
I think beer back.
Oh yeah, see, Don is already urgently in need of leaving. He's ready to go.
That's true, Brad.
He's going into that Azurite mine right now. And no, what throw those broadcasters a follow, both on social media, Twitter, YouTube. They also have, which I smartly didn't include, because people don't always have good YouTube links. Like, sometimes in the past I had like YouTube links that were random sequences of characters that busted the screen. This time with a little bit less preparation. Didn't include the YouTube links, but certainly if you search for the name, you'll find Ecktor's YouTube, you'll find Octavian's YouTube, and DonTheCrown's YouTube. And maybe I have a YouTube as well, where you can find this broadcast after it's finished. And there, Don comes back.
I have no videos on my YouTube, but subscribe anyway. It's okay.
Well, subscribe so that you will get notified when there will be videos on Ecktor's channel.
One day, I need engineering and Tyranny and Octavian to teach me video editing.
Like I know what I'm doing.
Well, the results speak for themselves. But yeah, guys, anything you want to still add before we say our goodbyes? And important question is, any of you streaming Path of Exile after this?
I'm probably going to eat this pizza that just got delivered and then go to bed.
Sounds amazing.
I'm going to take a short break to eat, but stream in maybe half an hour or so.
I will probably grab some food, play some games off stream, and go to sleep in like in a couple hours. Wake
Short
up
answer.
and stream Hearthstone.
We're all hungry. That's the short answer. It's
Yeah.
real hungry work discussing upcoming leagues.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Especially if you do it for 3 hours at a time.
I will not be playing PoE until Delve League. I'm just going to be playing other games. I'm thinking Monster Hunter World or some other stuff. I'm not sure yet.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely keep pushing the ladder. I definitely want to get this alt art demi for champion, which doesn't seem like as long as I just keep pushing, it's not going to be that bad. But yeah, like that's definitely my goal there.
And Octavian's still in for that Guardian demi, right?
Oh, yeah. Top 10 seems very doable. Hopefully, alt art is on the table as well. That is what I'm going to be streaming later today. Just got my Atlas set up correctly. I've got Infested Valley shaped and Underground Sea shaped, and I'm probably not going to leave them for a week. It'll be a good time.
Sounds
Good luck
amazing.
on both of you, Octavian and Don. I have not gotten the demis. I was going to push, but I ended up not enjoying my time. So
Yeah, if you don't like it, then the time investment would not be worth it for a shiny chess piece. Don't try and force yourself to play something you don't enjoy.
exactly. That's why I
I
just
just want to
stopped.
snipe another demi from another class, but I'm not sure which one yet.
Pathfinder seems really easy. Yesterday when I checked,
Yeah.
the highest Pathfinder was 93.
Pathfinder and Inquisitor are both surprisingly low population.
I did find this really balanced flask that you can only get from Perandus League 2 today. So,
Pathfinder OP.
Bonkers.
But I hope you guys enjoy your PoE endeavors. I will probably be doing other stuff until Delve. I hope to see you guys in Delve. I am going back in hardcore though, so I'm not going to be able to craft for you, Don.
Shots fired. Ah.
no, I send so many people to Ecktor's crafting services. If you're in softcore incursion, he's got all masters at 8. He's really, really good. Just watch out if you're trying to get a 5 socket on your chest that you've 4-offed. But that's it.
But yeah, sadly you won't be able to send all those people to Ecktor's anymore if he doesn't play softcore, right?
Yeah,
I
very
might
true.
play softcore to test out how far I can go, but I'm probably not going to farm masters there.
Guess I'll just have to do it myself this time.
Yeah. Or you can
Self-made
go
man.
that Tree of Life.
Yeah,
I've
used
heard
him
people
before,
say
but-
that the rate that he charges is kind of though.
Mhm.
I did it for free crafts. Didn't care.
Yeah, I always free craft for people and take tips. That's about it.
Well,
It looks like the lowest for solo self at least is Necromancer, Pathfinder, Raider, Berserker, and Guardian in terms of the top 10.
top
Guess I gotta
Berserker
go.
in Solo Self-Found Hardcore was a Vol Fireball build last time I checked,
Wow.
which I am real happy about. That just made me smile.
Mhm.
Man's using a Dread Arc and Ellie weakness on hit gloves. and he's cursing with flammability and LA weakness and going double curse, Vol, Fireball, Berserker. And he's only picked up normal and cruel lab because he doesn't use any of the other ascendancy points aside from more damage and the instant heal on Warcry. He's a goddamn unicorn. I love this person.
That's amazing. Amazing.
He's just
He
a
knows
marauder,
what he's
man.
doing. He knows what he's doing. Who needs Merc and Uber Lab?
But I think that's all we had for the day.
Yeah. Thank you guys again all for the wonderful discussion, for the wonderful vibes, and apologies to anyone who I might have startled with interrupting or not knowing when I should start talking or anything. Like that's the first podcast I've done with 4 people, and it's really hard to coordinate, especially because there's a little lag on Discord, right? You say something and someone else started saying something in the same moment, but you only realize a half a second later or something like that. But yeah, thank you guys all for being there, and thanks to the viewers for being there. Like I said, give those guys a follow, maybe a Twitch sub, whatever they deserve. And yeah, thank you all for being there. It was amazing. Probably gonna do this more often.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I mean, I have all the time in the world right now since I'm not pushing for a demi, so.
Maybe we have some more information in a couple of weeks' time, and we can throw something together
that'd
before
be a
the
good
Delph
idea.
launch.
Talk all about that information and stuff. Also, I do apologize for interrupting a lot. First time podcast ever. Like, actually, this is my first ever podcast, so I do apologize about that.
Well, I think everything went just smooth, man. Sometimes conversation just flows all over the place. So,
All right,
thank you
guys.
very much, guys. Have a great night. Or
Yeah,
evening
enjoy your
or
after
streams.
podcast food.
Everybody.